Good evening. Call to order the meeting tonight of the Salem Housing Authority for the City of Salem for Monday, March 25th, 2024. Would the recorder please call the roll?
Commissioner Nishioka.
Here.
Vice Chair Phillips.
Here.
Commissioner Gwynn.
Here.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Here.
Commissioner Hoy.
Here.
Commissioner Nordyke.
Here.
Commissioner Varney.
Here.
Resident Commissioner Villegas.
Here.
Chair Stapleton.
I'm here. Thank you. Would everyone please rise to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, Vice Chair Phillips, do we have any additions or deletions tonight?
Not tonight.
Thank you. Do we have anybody signed up for public comment? Not for this meeting? All right, Vice Chair Phillips, the consent calendar.
I move tonight's consent calendar.
I will second that.
Moved by Phillips. I'm going to give this one to second by Gwynn, Councilor Gwynn. All right, Councilor, to your motion.
Tonight's consent calendar consists of item 3.1A, the February 26, 2024 draft Salem Housing Authority minutes. And that concludes tonight's consent calendar.
It's riveting tonight, folks. All right, any discussion? All right, would the recorder please call the roll?
Commissioner Nishioka.
Aye.
Vice Chair Phillips.
Aye.
Commissioner Gwynn.
Aye.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Aye.
Commissioner Hoy.
Aye.
Commissioner Nordyke.
Aye.
Commissioner Varney.
Aye.
Resident Commissioner Villegas.
Aye.
Chair Stapleton.
Aye, motion passes. Thank you. We have no public hearings. We do have, and no special orders of business, but we do have an information report. Tonight we have Kristen Rutherford, Director, and if there are any questions, she can be able to help us tonight. I hope everybody got a chance to read the report. It's always good to hear from you guys and all the good work you're doing. Are there any questions that folks have? Okay, I'm going to ask one. I always ask one. We had a situation with a broken step this past week. Was it a week ago now? Would you mind giving us an update on that real quick?
Yes, I'd be happy to. So it was about a week ago, and we had a step failure out at the Sequoia Crossings apartment complex. We immediately took action to prevent further failures until we could further examine the situation by covering all of the treads. We did have a tenant that was injured on that step. We brought out ground penetrating radar and examined each of the steps, and the challenge was that one of the steps was cast, these are precast off-site, one was cast without rebar, and it was just one, so it could have been much worse than it was, and we were very fortunate that it was only the one step.
Was this work done through a subcontractor, or how is that working out?
Yes, it is through the subcontractor.
Okay. And I'm guessing that's repaired by now?
I don't know if it's in place yet or not. It has been covered, because they have to cast it off-site and bring it back in.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's happened in the last 3 or 4 days or not.
Okay. And do you know if the resident is okay?
To my knowledge, they are.
Okay. That's good news.
Nothing serious.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Seeing none, we are adjourned.
I'll call to order this meeting of the Urban Renewal Agency for the City of Salem for Monday, March 25th, 2024. Will the recorder please call the roll?
Board Member Stapleton.
Here.
Board Member Nishioka.
Here.
Board Member Phillips.
Here.
Board Member Gwynn.
Here.
Board Member Gonzalez.
Here.
Board Member Hoy.
Here.
Board Member Nordyke.
Here.
Board Member Varney.
Here.
Chair Hoy.
Here. All right, Councilor Stapleton, do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Not tonight.
All right. We have nobody signed up for public comment to the Urban Renewal Agency. Councilor Stapleton, the consent calendar.
Thank you. I move approval of the consent calendar.
I'm
Second.
sorry, I think we have a poll.
Oh, sorry, thank you. We were just talking about that too, but my brain is moving too fast for myself. So I move approval of the consent calendar with the exception of item 3.3B, which is pulled by Councilor
3.3
Nishioka.
3.3A.
No, we just corrected. Sorry, that was why I was confused. It was item 3.3B.
Okay.
Sorry for the confusion.
Second.
So just to clarify, we have a motion to approve the consent calendar with the exception of item 3.3B, pulled by Board Member Nishioka. Okay, Counselor, to your motion.
Thank you so much. So other than that, we have items 3.1A, which is the February 26, 2024 draft Urban Renewal Agency minutes. Item 3.3A. Let's see here, the creation of a potential north. You messed up again?
I did.
I thought so. I thought
Okay.
so.
I'm so sorry.
Okay, so what do I need to do?
I'm sorry, this was short notice.
Dan Atchison, City Attorney. So I assume we actually want to pull 3.3B?
No, 3.3A.
3.3A.
3.3A, excuse me. Okay.
I
So,
don't even know.
Counselor Stapleton, can you restate the motion as intended?
Yes, I can. I move approval of the consent calendar with the exception of item 3.3A, pulled by Councilor Nishioka, or Board Member Council.
Can we have a second on that?
Second.
Okay.
Motion by Stapleton, second by Phillips.
Okay, so we're back at it here. Item 3.1A, which is the draft minutes. Item 3.3B, the Riverfront and Downtown Urban Renewal Capital Improvement Grant Program exception for 285 Liberty. And that concludes the consent calendar.
Further discussion? Will the recorder please call the roll?
Board Member Gonzalez.
Aye.
Board Member Hoy.
Aye.
Board Member Nordyke.
Aye.
Board Member Varney.
Aye.
Board Member Stapleton.
Aye.
Board Member Nishioka.
Aye.
Board Member Phillips.
Aye.
Board Member Gwynn.
Aye.
Chair Hoy.
Aye. Motion passes. We have no public hearings, but we do now have a special order of business. Item 3.3A, Counselor Nishioka.
Thank you, Mayor Hoy, and I again apologize for my back and forth on this. This was just something I discussed with Ms. Rutherford. I would like to ask...
Counselor, I need a motion first.
Oh. Thank you. I move staff recommendation.
Second.
Motion by Nishioka, second by Stapleton. Counselor, to your motion.
Thank you. Now I'll go. So I had a couple questions that I wanted to ask Ms. Rutherford
Certainly.
in regards to the new urban renewal area. And so the question was, how will this new URA impact the general fund with a timeline of these impacts? That's the first question. May I go ahead and ask the second? I think you're prepared. I also would like to hear if the URA might cause additional homes in compression. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Nishioka. So the first thing that I want to make clear this evening is that this action is only the very beginning of the process of creating a new urban renewal area. And this is about a year-long process. And during that process, there will be a number of things that will occur. So there will be identifying projects that go in the plan. There will be creating a boundary for the urban renewal area. There's going to be a great deal of financial analysis, and there's going to be a great deal of outreach to the community, the neighborhood association, and our other taxing districts. Okay, so I just want to just reassure everybody we are at the very beginning of all of this. So a lot of opportunity to define what it is.
And we could ultimately decide not to do it.
Absolutely, absolutely. This is not adopting anything. So the complete decision to adopt it will come back to City Council in 9 months to a year. And that's when the big decision occurs, okay? So to answer your questions about how this impacts the general fund, the amount of revenue from this proposed area, which would be between the Riverfront Downtown Urban Renewal area and the Northgate Urban Renewal area along the North Waterfront area, it won't impact any of the revenue that is currently coming into the general fund from that area. If the decision is to create an urban renewal area here, then any growth in assessed valuation during the life of the urban renewal area will come to the urban renewal area to be spent on projects, okay? So the current assessed valuation and taxes come to the city. Anything new above and beyond that comes to the urban renewal area. In about 25 years, when that plan is completed and all those projects are completed and when we close it down, then all that growth in assessed valuation then comes back to the city and the other taxing districts. But we're not losing anything that we have right now, okay?
Thank you.
All right. Then your second question is about compression. So compression occurs when your real market, when your property values, your real values are going down and kind of crossing with the assessed valuations going up. That's what creates compression. Okay? And that's not the result of the creation of an urban renewal area. In fact, urban renewal areas can benefit compression by attracting new investment and causing assessed valuation to grow. So it's keeping those two things kind of growing like this, right? The real impact to compression is if there is a recession, if we have a crisis like we did earlier in the 2000s where real market values decrease substantially. And that's when you could potentially end up in a compression situation.
Thank you. And just for everyone's information is I had wanted this to be discussed because I know that with the budget going on and questions on urban renewal, I wanted to have additional information. So thank you very much for
You bet.
letting me
Councilor
know that.
Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mayor Hoy. And just out of an abundance of caution, as soon as I saw the notice of this, I own property and potentially where this might happen. So I just want to throw it out there so everybody has that on the radar. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Further discussion. Councilor Stapleton.
Sure, thank you. I'm really excited about this. I know it's just the beginning phases, and I know that there's still a lot of research to be done and public outreach. The folks in this area, this is my ward, and the folks in this area are really excited about any kind of potential development here. Looking at any kind of redevelopment along Front Street means we have to address Front Street. And Front Street is a huge challenge, and I feel strongly that this will help us really achieve our goals in that area, which is dense urban housing for our city and really revitalizing that whole area. So I'm really excited for the potential, and I hope that this passes here today.
Thank you, Councilor. Further discussion? Councilor Nordyke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, Director Rutherford. Can you just give us a couple examples of what you could do with a URA in this area for those who may be unfamiliar with the URA process?
Absolutely. The kinds of projects that we're contemplating in this urban renewal area, one would be Front Street, as Councilor Stapleton mentioned. That's going to require a significant amount of improvements for anything to develop on the property that fronts Front Street. We could also provide grants to assist in redevelopment. You can do environmental cleanup with urban renewal. Anything that's bricks and mortar, we're looking at any parks projects, trail projects, waterfront trail, bike ped improvements. That's kind of the big array of projects. Yeah.
Councilor Phillips.
Thank you, Mayor Hoy and my colleagues for pulling this and asking these important questions. So we've mentioned Front Street, and I just want to kind of ask a follow-up question. You know, Front Street, as a reminder, doesn't just include a street, but it includes a rail line. So are there any unique issues related to having a rail line in your urban renewal area? Like, how does that work, and what are the opportunities there?
So many unique issues with having one in that area. We have been working, Brian Martin and I and the public works staff, on a rail diagnostic in partnership with a consultant and the railroad. We are also looking to pull together the state's regional solution teams with ODOT Rail to look at issues tied to rail crossings. So there are a lot of unique challenges with encouraging development in an environment where you also really need to be aware of vehicle and pedestrian safety. So having an urban renewal area to bring some additional resources as grant match for, a raise grant or something else would be very, very helpful. There are communities, there's is it Rainier where they had the Rainier where they did a similar project. The city of Vancouver elevated their rail line to allow crossings to go underneath the rail line. Those are very, very expensive projects to do something like that. There are also some other benefits that are well beyond the scope of our control that are much more influenced regionally, statewide, and that would be the continuation of the West Side Express service from Wilsonville to Salem. So development in this area, I think, would provide a lot of opportunities for a park and ride sort of scenario in that area to allow rail commutes between Salem and the Portland metro area.
Thank you for those follow-up answers. And I think that this is, to me, a no-brainer to start this process and get more information so that we can look at, revitalizing this part of downtown. I'm looking for any possible solutions to fixing the safety issues when you're sharing a road and a rail line at the same time. I have cared for patients affected by this in the emergency room. So my hope is that we could have real investment and that this really is a place that's ideally situated for something like a URA. So thank you.
Further discussion. Councillor Hoy.
Just briefly, is it possible for development to happen in this area before this issue is resolved, or would this need to happen first before any development could start?
We're not certain yet. So that's going to be influenced largely by feedback that we get from the railroad and and rail crossings, and whether or not we'll be able to allow any development without having a solution in place for the railroad. Yeah.
Further discussion? All right, will the recorder please call the roll?
Board Member Hoy.
Aye.
Board Member Nordyke.
Aye.
Board Member Varney.
Aye.
Board Member Stapleton.
Aye.
Board Member Nishioka.
Aye.
Board Member Phillips.
Aye.
Board Member Gwynn.
Aye.
Board Member Gonzalez.
Aye.
Chair Hoy.
Aye, motion passes. All right, we have no information reports, so the Urban Renewal Agency is adjourned. Call to order the meeting of the Salem City Council for Monday, March 25th, 2024. If the recorder will please call the roll.
Councillor Stapleton.
I'm here.
Councillor Nishioka.
Here.
Councillor Phillips.
Here.
Councillor Gwynn.
Here.
Councillor Gonzalez.
Here.
Councillor Hoy.
Here?
Councillor Nordyke.
Here.
Councillor Varney.
Here.
Mayor Hoy.
Here. Councillor Stapleton, do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Not tonight.
All right. It is now time for council and city manager comments. I am going to start with our city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council, and the community that are gathered here this evening and are viewing out there on video land. As you might imagine, we had quite a bit of email traffic today regarding the issues related with the library and the potential closing of the library. I want to assure all of you that that is not the intention of this process or this council or this community to close our library. That was one of 4 different scenarios that the City Council reviewed in September and October, but it was not a scenario that Council voted on, that Council accepted, or provided any direction for us to move forward on. So I thought it would be helpful for me to read the email that I have been sending to people who have corresponded with me and with Council regarding this matter. So bear with me. I agree that the library is an incredibly important part of the cultural backbone of the city. Closing it would be a terrible loss. At this point, no one is proposing the library should close. The city of Salem is facing significant financial challenges. Without a revenue source that keeps pace with escalating costs, we cannot continue to deliver services at the same level. Without additional revenue in the next 18 months, we will be forced to make some difficult decisions. Right now, the City Council, council members, and the community are engaged in two very difficult conversations. The first is the Budget Committee. That was last week, where we did review the 4 scenarios that were considered in September and October. The first is the Budget Committee, and their task is to make recommendations on the budget that is aligned with the available resources. This year, that is going to mean cutting services. The second conversation that is taking place in the Revenue Task Force, and their work is to identify additional ongoing funding sources that will support services like the library that are essential for a livable city. I say here the graphic below illustrates the type of impacts that will result without additional revenue. That graphic is what we characterized as option 1, and that is included in the email. They include a continuing reduction of library services, not a full closure, changes in operations at the Center 50, Parks and Recreation, shelter, and graffiti abatement. This is in addition to reductions to the library and the police that were adopted by council in February of 2012. And those reductions include reductions to the library staffing and 5 police positions.
2024.
I'm sorry, yes, 2024, correct. I will be submitting a proposed budget to City Council and the Budget Committee in mid-April. We will have a budget meeting in this room on April 17th, where we will essentially reveal and open the budget and start through that process. I anticipate this budget proposal will look very closely to option 1. As you can see, the cuts to the library and other community services happened this year in 2025. The cuts to police, fire services will happen in 2026 and beyond, again, without additional revenue. My hope is that the Revenue Committee and the Salem residents will identify and support additional revenue we need to prevent future reductions. We will allow us to expand services at the library, fire, police departments to begin to address our growing service demands. I encourage you to add your voice to the Revenue Task Force process. And in that vein, the Revenue Task Force will be holding 3 community engagement sessions, community conversations, open houses, if you will. The first is on April 10th. That is in South Salem at Baxter Hill Community Hall. The second is on April 16th. That is a virtual engagement. Information is available on our website regarding that. And then April 23rd, the third and final open house will be at Center 50 Plus. Each of these starts at 6:30 p.m. There is also a form here available for all of you. Should you want to leave a comment, please feel free to do that. And then there is another form that we have prepared that also details the dates, times, and how to participate in this process going forward. So I can encourage you to do that. We have nothing on the agenda this evening related to the library or any other budget matter this evening. So happy to take any questions that council may have at this time.
And just to clarify, those documents that you referenced are available on, I think, on each side, maybe?
Correct.
So folks are welcome to pick those up there.
Yes, and that is it. Thank you.
Are there questions for the city manager from council? All right. We will continue on. Thank you, Mr. Staley. We'll continue on with councilor comments then. Does anybody have any? Councilor Nishioka.
Thank you, Mayor Hoy. I'm pleased to inform you that the Community Services and Parks Recreation Team has finalized an agreement with Oregon Soapbox Derby Association to return their competitions to Salem's Derby Hill at Bush's Pasture Park, beginning May 25th and 26th, 2024. The Oregon Soapbox Derby had relocated to La Grande and had been having their events there. And when Mr. Archer joined our city staff, he and I started working with the Soapbox Derby Association, and I'm really pleased to say that they were able to make an agreement and that we will bring back the Soapbox Derbies here in Salem. And I just wanted to make a comment on that.
Thank you, Councilor. Are there additional comments? Councilor Gwynn.
I just want to clap for that, but you won't let me, so. Thank you. That's awesome. But for everyone here, I just want to say thank you so much for those of you that have reached out by phone, email. We do hear what you have to say, and the library is important to all of us. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Are there additional comments? Councilor Nordyke.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. So I grew up at the Salem Public Library. I was one of those shy, weird kids that was a lot more comfortable reading books than talking to people. And so I feel strongly about our library. And I voted against making cuts to our library earlier this year. I recognize that cuts of some kind may be unavoidable moving forward, but a complete closure of the library is a non-starter for me. And it isn't just the fact that I love the library. It has a lot to do with the fact that all of you here love the library too. I also am, when I think of the library, I always think of my grandma Stella, because she was an avid reader, and she too was a patron of the Salem Public Library. And I think I've inherited the bookworm gene, courtesy of Stella Nordyke. But as she got older and as her vision faded with time, we were worried that the library, which was her window to the world, would fade away. But thankfully, the Salem Public Library has audiobooks. And when I would go over to my grandmother's house after school, I was tasked with reading the library catalog aloud to her, preferably in a dramatic fashion. And I would, basically audition various books for her, and then she would tell me. Sometimes she would just close her eyes and listen to me read. So that was a powerful bond that we had. And again, that helps explain why I feel so strongly about our library. And by the way, she was a huge fan of murder mysteries. That was her favorite. Everyone in here has a favorite. Maybe it is the fiction section. Maybe it's the offerings we have available to our teens. Maybe it's the fact that we have story time in Spanish as well as English. Maybe it's the fact that we have items that you can check out from the library that would be out of reach financially for a lot of people. Whatever your reason is for coming to the library, it is safe and accessible to all, which sometimes includes our people who live outdoors in camps. The library is one of the few places you can go where you can be indoors and not have to pay for the privilege of being there. You don't have to buy a cup of coffee. I don't think you even have to ask for the Wi-Fi password. And so I understand the value. And I want to echo the comments that have been made already, including City Manager Staley. Please know that we're not making decisions on this tonight. I understand why you are deeply concerned about this. And like Councilor Gwynn said, I'm thrilled that you are here to demonstrate your support. And there will be more public meetings for you to do that. All of our meetings are open to the public. All of them are streamed online. All of them are available with ASL interpretation and in Spanish. And if any of those languages don't work for you or someone you know, please let us know, because we have additional interpreting services. We want to make sure that our meetings are accessible to all. So we will face some very difficult budgetary decisions. And if you want us to prioritize the library, you might need to consider the impact that'll have on what we don't give as much priority to. There's no easy decisions here, folks. And so I welcome everyone from my ward, Ward 7, to please make sure that you stay in touch with me, email me, come to my neighborhood association meetings. I want to be available to you. But thank you all. For all of you who are patrons of the library, I hear you and I see you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Councilor. Are there additional comments? Councilor Hoy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've heard from a lot of frustrated people today, and I share their frustration. This is way bigger than closing a library. As elected leaders, which is not my goal, by the way. As elected leaders, our job is to make tough decisions. At the same time, it's also our job to communicate early and often and include people in the process. At our last budget committee meeting, maybe 2 people showed up to testify. Yet we're receiving hundreds of emails today, kind of after it feels like the cake's already been baked, even though it hasn't. We need a better process to include these people sooner, so we can better reflect the priorities of the residents of Salem in our policy decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Are there additional comments? All right, it is now time for proclamations. I would like to invite up Bruce Anderson, the Deputy CEO of Liberty House, to receive the proclamation on Child Abuse Prevention Month. All right. Whereas every child deserves to live in a safe, loving, and caring family environment, and whereas in 2022, there were 10,711 reported victims of child abuse and neglect in Oregon, of which 1,098 were victims in Marion County, and whereas we stand together as individuals, organizations, and government agencies to commit to preventing child abuse in our county by raising awareness throughout the community and by educating and supporting caregivers. And whereas we assert that strong families and safe, stable, and nurturing environments free from violence, abuse, and neglect are essential for children's optimal growth and success, which ensures a secure future for our communities where the needs of children are a priority and the needs of families are met. And now, therefore, I, Chris Hoy, Mayor of the City of Salem, do hereby proclaim April 2024 as Child Abuse Prevention Month, and ask the community to observe this month with programs and activities that commit to protecting our children. Dated this 25th day of March 2024. Thank you.
I do, yes. Well, I just want to make this real brief. Just really appreciate the recognition for April as Child Abuse Prevention Month. Mr. Mayor, thank you so much. Liberty House is in our 25th anniversary of our 25th year of working in this community to help prevent child abuse, as well as working on the children and families that have experienced abuse, neglect, trauma, and grief in our community. This is a real challenge here. And we just really appreciate our community partners here at the city, our police department. I see Councilor Nordyke here with CASA, a great community partner. I'd also got to do a shout out for Tim Murphy, who is one of our original board members that kicked off, as well as Gretchen Bennett in the way back there, and just really appreciate this entire community is just really comes around to help out this community, and so just really appreciate that work so much. And I just would be remiss if I didn't point out just a few resources that are available as we do get out. There's actually a website that folks can go to, parentforthefuture.org, which has a registration link for the Child Abuse Prevention Month car parade that'll be happening April 5th, starting at the Oregon State Fairgrounds, as well as other activities, displays here in the community. Various local agencies and organizations are involved in that. And then finally, we also, if you go to libertyhousecenter.org, we do have a complete listing of our free training series that will be conducted in English and Spanish. So just really, really appreciate everybody's support, and thank you so much, sir.
All right. Thanks, Bruce. All right, we are on to public comment for items on our agenda other than public hearings. So we have 3, 6, 7, 8, 9 folks signed up for this section. So we will just start at the top. I'll go in person first, and then we'll go online at the end. First up, and before I say the name, just as a reminder for everybody coming up, come up to either of the podium, hit the button so the green light comes on, state your name and either your address or your ward, and then you have 3 minutes to speak. The yellow light will start flashing when you have a minute left. The red light comes on when your time's up. Please end your testimony when that red light comes on. So then first up, we have David Patterson.
Mayor and Council, hello. I'm David Patterson, representing Falck Northwest at 1790 Front Street Northeast. I'm a paramedic and have the privilege of leading EMS systems in multiple jurisdictions for nearly 25 years. Commenting on item 5B tonight, over the last 2 weeks I've had an opportunity to discuss the Salem and Fire proposal with many of you, but unfortunately not all. The proposal Salem Fire has put forward still does not provide sufficient detail to give certainty that acquiring ambulance service will result in the outcome you desire, excellent service that provides sufficient hours and a surplus revenue stream. The model Salem Fire is proposing is the same civilian paramedic staffing model Falck has in place today, but with fewer ambulances and a more static staffing model. Falck regrets we've failed to meet our contractual obligation for service hours. We know that things must improve. We've tried multiple strategies over the last 12 months to improve recruitment and retention of paramedics with mixed success. However, our most promising strategies to provide sufficient service hours have just recently been deployed. Along with the new federal reimbursement program that was approved recently, these strategies hold the most promise to allow us to recruit the needed staff and return the service Salem enjoyed prior to the pandemic. Since the council meeting 2 weeks ago, Falck has moved ahead with our plan to provide more competitive wages in an effort to recruit more paramedics. With affirmation from both Salem Fire and the AP Triton consultant, we hope the council will advance the rate increase to support this new wage scale. Additionally, we continue to staff 2 ambulances with basic life support service on a pilot that was just approved in January. We utilize 2 EMTs rather than an EMT and paramedic, which provide appropriate service to low acuity patients with EMTs that are more readily available. If this pilot's allowed to continue, something affirmed by AP Triton, this will be a part of the solution to the paramedic staffing shortage. These substantial hours are not included in the total contractual staffing report. Finally, we just learned from the Oregon Ambulance Association this week that the federal government through CMS has approved a private EMS transport reimbursement program called the QAF that'll provide additional reimbursement for Medicaid patients similar to the GEMT program. This reimbursement model requires investment in payroll, providing additional resources to aid in the recruitment of paramedics and EMTs. If the city would allow these strategies to take effect, we believe we'll return to the excellent service the city's enjoyed prior to 2021. These strategies are the same ones Salem Fire would need to employ, or they'd be in the exact same position they are today, paying overtime for firefighter paramedics, but with the added cost and liability of ambulances, staffing, recruitment, retention, turnover, and everything else that comes with running ambulance service. If these strategies work for Falck, does it make sense to bring service in-house to Salem Fire? If they don't, what different strategies will Salem Fire employ to change today's situation? I believe these questions warrant answers before deciding how to move forward. Providing service is Falck's expertise, and we've been honored to serve the community for 9 years. We ask before you make a final decision to move forward with the proposal, you allow time to engage in additional discussion, community engagement, financial due diligence, exploration of various options to ensure Salem is making the best decision for the future for ambulance service. We'd welcome the opportunity to explore additional enhancements to the system we have deployed in other jurisdictions where we operate. If we're allowed the opportunity to collaboratively problem solve with you, Falck can partner with you to develop an improved system that will benefit the residents of the community. Thanks again for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Patterson. Does anybody have any questions, given this situation, and it's not a public hearing, but yet this Falck plays a substantial role in one of our agenda items? I think it would be appropriate to allow for questions, if anybody has any. Councilor Hoy.
Can you please explain a little bit further about the static staffing model and what would be an issue with that?
Thanks, Councilmember, for the question. So currently what we utilize is time of day, day of week studies to look at call demand, which you can somewhat predict on a bell-shaped curve based upon when that call happens. So our staffing based on that demand could range from 4 ambulances to a peak staff of 10 ambulances. What the consultant has proposed for the Salem Fire program is 7 full-time ambulances with an 8th ambulance, 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. So it really takes the advantage of that dynamic staffing from a higher range when the call volume is the highest to have the most ambulances on the street, to really a variance of only 1, 7 full-time all the time with 1 peak 7 days a week. So it really puts it more in a static. And I also understand from the AP Triton report that would move to 24-hour shifts versus the 12-hour shifts, which also take away some of that flexibility, as well as not to mention fatigue issues and other things that come along with those longer shifts.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Patterson. Next up, we have Nicholas Van Epps.
This button here. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Councilors. I stand before you today as representative of the dedicated individuals at Falck Ambulance, the unsung pillars of hope in our community. My name is Nicholas Van Epps. I'm a 20-year paramedic, and I'm currently the clinical manager of Falck Ambulance here in Salem, Oregon. I've witnessed firsthand the incredible dedication and resilience that our team has given, and I am inspired by the work and sacrifices that they have made and continue to make today. Before, during, and since COVID-19, our employees have been on the front lines of healthcare, facing unprecedented challenges and unwavering determination. Despite the risks to themselves and their families, they continued to show up day in and day out, providing essential care to our community when it was needed most. COVID-19 has been brutal on EMS workers, not only testing our resilience of the healthcare system, but also exposing our vulnerabilities. Thanks to COVID, the U.S. continues to witness a mass exodus from all healthcare fields. For us, this means leaving a critical shortage of paramedics and EMTs nationwide. Schools have begun shutting down during the pandemic. That halted the progression and the recruitment pipeline for all professions. Even hospitals struggle to find qualified personnel and have set their sights overseas, now recruiting travelers from other countries to matriculate to the USA to work. We in EMS are no different. Now imagine, if you will, trying to recruit in this environment using a budget and contract written for the world of 2015. We don't have to imagine this because at Falck we're living this right now as we speak. However, despite these challenges, the employees of Falck Ambulance have remained steadfast in their commitment to serving Salem. They show up every day because they are compassionate caregivers, dedicated professionals, and pillars of our community who believe in the mission of EMS. As a company, we are focused on 2025 and the idea that contract renovation, competition, and evolution in healthcare would bring a much-needed change to our industry and offer solutions that allow us to thrive and grow into the future. Now more than ever, I urge you not to overlook your public servants and recognize the invaluable contributions of our paramedics and EMTs. These individuals have sacrificed their own well-being to ensure the safety and health of our citizens. They have proven time and time again that their ability to adapt and excel even in the face of the pandemic and now a healthcare recession. Ladies and gentlemen of the council, the decision you make today will impact the lives of over 80 individuals. They are not numbers on a budget sheet or a method to gain access to GEMT Medicare funding or a pathway to hire more firefighters. These people are our neighbors, our friends, and our heroes who show up every day to bring hope to the city of Salem. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Councilors Phillips.
Thank you, Mayor Hoy, and thank you for your testimony tonight, and thank you and your colleagues for the services that they provided. I don't know if you're best equipped to answer my question. I'm kind of going into like weird territory, so if any of my staff members need to rein me in, that's fine. If the city moves in a direction of taking this back in-house, are there any non-compete clauses or reasons that your members couldn't move over to come back with the city of Salem, or would they have to work elsewhere?
At this time, I'm not aware of any plans or anything that has been communicated in the AP Triton study or any plans that have been communicated to our staff to welcome any sort of a bridge program or some sort of a recommendation for that. I will say that we are a union organization and that our union is strong, they're smart, they're very involved with what's going on. And I believe there is a letter that was submitted by NAGE that was also showing that they are also very concerned about our employees and their well-being. I also am wondering myself just what kind of a transition plan that would look like. Falck is going to stay, and we are going to absolutely do our best to do everything here to take care of the community. That's the most important thing to us. It's what drives us in EMS. My position here is to remind everybody about how important those people are because they are a rare commodity, and they are the most important piece of this decision, that there just aren't enough paramedics and EMTs to go around. They're not just growing on trees. There are like schools out there right now that are struggling to find people that want to get into this profession because it can be a difficult one. Therefore, the people who are working at Falck are the most important thing to me. They're the most important thing that we can support. And this initiative affects those 80 people. And my question is what happens to them if this decides to move forward? And I think that we need to take a lot of time to think about that and think about those people
Thank you, Mr. Van Epps. So earlier today, Councilor, I asked the city manager the same question because I'm concerned about the employees as well, and I believe that they'll be addressing that tonight during the presentation. Okay. Because that's a concern I had as well. I want to make sure that we have a transition plan should this decision move forward, because yeah, it's important to me as well.
Thank you. Thank you both.
You bet. Next up is Tim Morris.
Mr. Mayor and Council, thank you. My name is Tim Morris. I represent Falck Northwest in Ward 1 at 1790 Front Street, Northeast Salem. I am a new general manager of Falck here in Salem. I wish to share some questions that have been addressed to me by those of us that work and live in Salem. As you consider the Salem Fire Department proposal, please also consider the following information that could be useful in giving the Council certainty that the proposed model will provide the results that have been promised. AP Triton in their study calls for 42 EMTs and paramedics to staff the Salem Fire Department ambulance model. A March 13 article in the Salem Reporter quotes the fire department as claiming to need 50 to 70 EMTs and paramedics and utilizing firefighter paramedics that are on staff to supplement services when needed. Some of the questions are, have you received confirmation and justification of how many paramedics and EMTs will actually be needed? What is the cost for their compensation package? Will Salem Fire be able to recruit sufficient paramedics to prevent firefighters from needing to supplement services as they are today in doing overtime? If not, what is this estimate for how many overtime hours are anticipated by firefighters to meet service requirements? 2 weeks ago, it was mentioned on the record that a loan will be needed to finance ambulance and staff. Salem Fire says they will need 12 ambulances. What is the size of the loan that will be needed? How long will it take to pay it back? Will the system be able to generate enough revenue to pay the loan? If so, at what point and what cost to Salem residents? How long before the system will generate a surplus as promised? If the city does want to take advantage of the GMT program, why hasn't the alliance model, which is one of only 5 of the AP Triton recommendations that doesn't involve total insourcing, been considered? The city can pay an hourly rate to a private partner such as Falck who absorbs the risk while the city retains excess revenues. Is there an assumption that Salem Fire Department will hire Falck current EMS staff? Our ADMS professionals have not been provided any assurances in the process. What will be the hiring, testing, and selection process? What is the pay scale and the benefits for those employees? Would they have union, or would they have to have reunionization? Falck is a foundation-owned company, and many EMS professionals choose to work for Falck because of our culture and our diversity. In a very competitive job market, it's very possible staff will choose to work outside the Salem community. We don't want to lose 80 professionals here. The rush timeline of this decision has resulted in a lack of transparency and limited community and stakeholder engagement. With collaboration and discussion, Falck's contract could be temporarily extended to provide the timeline relief that the council and the community need to due diligence this decision deserves.
Thank you, Mr. Morris.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question for you before you step away. So I asked the question also about that sort of what I consider like a hybrid model. But what made me think that it might not be a great idea is when I look at the performance of Falck over the past 16 months. And I know that the fire department stepped in to help out the difficulty. We thought it was going to be a temporary basis, but for 16 months you failed to live up to your contract. why would we think that there's something that's going to change and make you able to live up to a contract now that you haven't been able to live up to for the last 16 months?
I understand that, and I appreciate your question very much. There are a lot of things, initiatives that had occurred over that time period that takes time to initiate, to put into place. One of them is raising the money that we need to employ new paramedics. There's just recently been new initiatives put into place to where we can pay more to paramedic staff. That's allowed us to recruit more. It takes time to do that. There's a shortage of paramedics. If we don't have the staff we need to meet our contractual obligations, we just can't do that. So we've initiated pay raises throughout the paramedic field. We're employing new paramedics. That'll get us up to a level to meet our contract obligations, to where going forward we'll be able to do that.
Why didn't that happen during the last 16 months?
I'm new in this position. There's other people that would probably have a better answer for you. But from my perspective, we had our hands tied by being able to charge more for our ambulance service in this region. We had our hands tied by not having the funding available to us to be able to pay our employees. We have an initiative to the city that's upcoming in a June vote to have a raise for paramedic salaries. And part of that is not being able to recruit nationally. So I have worked overseas in the last 11 years, and I can tell you that there's a paramedic shortage in this state, in every state in this nation, in every country on this planet. So it's very difficult to get people to come and work. And if you're not competitive in your pay raise and your benefits to employees, you're not going to get them here.
Thank you.
So
next up, we have Robert Dahlke.
Hi, my name's Robert Dahlke. I am the outgoing general manager. I live in West Salem, Ward 8. So I'm appearing for you this evening to urge you to delay the vote on this drastic changes to Salem's EMS system that the consultant has proposed. In emergency medical services, we have a saying, first do no harm. I'm here to tell you that the rush to fundamentally change the Salem EMS system carries with it an exceptional risk of harm. Harm to the paramedics and EMTs who currently work in the system, harm to the city, and most importantly, harm to the patients and the citizens that we serve. A decision to move forward with the consultant's plan would have a devastating effect on Falk's ability to recruit and retain medics and EMTs for the remaining 15 months of this contract. That in turn would have an enormous negative impact on the professionals who remain in the system, resulting in even fewer ambulances available to respond to emergency calls for medical assistances within Salem. Worse, it would virtually guarantee the increased cases of burnout and fatigue, the lives of our employees that currently work in Falk. So Mayor, you had asked earlier, some of the initiatives that we took that we didn't have available to us in the past. The biggest one is an $8 to $9 an hour rate increase that we've actually put into place this month, and we feel that that will make us competitive in our space. The second part to that, why we haven't been able to recruit most recently, was a contract that we had signed that Mr. Van Epps had alluded to in 2015. This contract was structured in a time where EMS wasn't struggling so hard during the post-COVID. As it stands now, we pay $932 annually to the City of Salem's dispatch and other city services. And of that, we do another $16,000 quarterly for radio service. And with that, we do about 5 to 7-ish or so, depending on the volume, to help fund the City of Salem's medical consumables that they actually consume on call. So essentially, we do about $1.2 million annually before we even touch a patient. This is the biggest financial impact that you're going to see if you move forward with removing Falk. And with that, over the next 4 to 5 years, which is probably the extent of the next contract, that's almost $5.5 million that hasn't been accounted for thus far that we actually provide for this contract. We do feel that this $8 an hour to $9 an hour rate increase per hour, by the way, for medics will have a huge impact. We've already seen the impact of it just in the past 2 to 3 weeks, where we've been able to hire and onboard 5 medics. We're still short about between 10 and 12 medics, but we feel within the next 2 to 3 months, the next 2 to 3 weeks, we can see a drastic change with that and an even bigger change within the 2 to 3 months it takes to onboard new medics within our system.
Thank you, Mr. Dalkey.
Absolutely.
Any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Tim Murphy.
Looks like I was.
Nope, you just turned it off. There you go.
Am I on?
Yes.
Okay. Mayor and members of the council, thank you for letting me speak with you tonight. I'm Tim Murphy, and I'm the Chief Executive Officer and the founder of Bridgeway Community Health. We operate the largest detox clinic in the region. And by the nature of my business, we are a frequent user of ambulance services. And we are in full support of moving that service back to Salem Fire. For the first 6 years of Bridgeway's existence, the contract was with Salem Fire, and for the last 9 years, it's been with Falk. And I support the hard work that emergency services do. I know what it's like. We just feel that we've got better service with Salem Fire, and we're committed to working closely with Salem Fire. Over the years, I've called Chief Neblock several times to voice my disappointment with services that we were receiving, and I've reached out to Falk as well. The opportunity to return the service to Salem Fire is one that I urge you all to seriously consider and make the decision to do that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Next up, we have Nicholas Grice. Nope, you turned it off. There you go.
Am I on?
You are on.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, my name is Nicholas Grice, Secretary Treasurer of Salem Professional Firefighters and a Ward 4 resident. I rise tonight to urge you to vote yes for item 5B on the agenda and move forward with the fire department ambulance operator model and not delay it any further. Council has to rely on subject matter experts for operational decisions. In this case, the fire chief recommends this model and hired a respected consulting firm to provide the data that was provided last meeting. This will be the best and most stable model to provide EMS service to the citizens of Salem moving forward, and is being used in multiple nearby communities such as Kaiser, Marion County. It's used in the Tualatin Valley area, Bend, Eugene, and has been successful. Further delay will cut into the necessary time to plan and to implement the model by July of 2025. Also, I'd like to bring attention to make sure you all had the opportunity to read the letter submitted by President Brozovic of Salem Professional Firefighters that was sent in this afternoon. He's urging a yes vote as well tonight to move forward with the ambulance operator model by the fire department. Also, just to address some concerns brought up earlier, we're a 100% union shop and are always looking for new members. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? All right. Next up, we have Tom Hoffert.
Good evening, Mayor Hoy and City Councilors. Thank you. My name is Tom Hoffert. I serve as CEO of the Salem Chamber in Ward 1 and also a resident of Ward 1. The Salem Chamber is here in front of you, neither advocating nor dissuading you from in the decision process tonight, but rather to bring up a couple issues that we would like you to ferret out in your conversations with each other. Our organization found out about this transition on, this proposed transition on March 7th. Thank you to Chief Niblock for coming to the Salem Chamber personally to visit me with that. Shortly thereafter, that very afternoon, I received a phone call from David Patterson at Falk Emergency Services with an urgent reach out to be heard and to share information. In disclosure, Falk is a paying member of the Salem Chamber with an annual membership investment of $850. Mr. Patterson requested the Salem Chamber engage in the dialogue of the proposed transition to away from private contractor back to the Salem Fire Department. And then the following Monday, on March 11th, I shared after dialogue with City Manager Staley and Chief Niblock, I appeared in front of you, asked that a vote on this was delayed, at least for a finite amount of time. Subsequently, Chief Niblock and union representatives met with a cross-section of our membership to share their plan and perspectives and the situation the city is facing with Falk, specific to their response times and staffing levels. The fire department has justifiably noted that Falk is unable to provide the staffing support necessary to ensure residents of an emergency time that's in alignment with council goals. It is important to note that the Salem Chamber is a staunch advocate of our emergency services, both police and fire. Despite these earnest efforts to inform, our organization does wish to share a few concerns that we have on this process, largely due to how quick the process is moving, and then a few other that I'd like to touch base on. Although the fire department is currently backfilling labor on the ambulance service due to Falk's labor challenges, the proposal of 48 to 60 new fire department EMTs and paramedics is in fact a notable expansion of our city government. We'd respectfully ask that council consider the quickness of this process, the long-term financial impact of 50 to 60 new fire department employees, and reflect on the council's goals, transparencies to its key shareholders. To date, Salem Hospital has not been brought into this conversation, and they actually noted they found out about this through media. Our local neighborhood associations have presented city budget, land use, transportation, and overlay zones, bond measures, but again, this project was not brought forward to the neighborhood association. Good governance is something that we stand for and we support you considering, and we fear this process and quickness of this process may erode a bit of the public's faith. Thank you for the opportunity to share our thoughts.
Thank you, Mr. Hoffert. I think you have a question. Hold on. Councilor Gwynn.
Did you have any other concerns? Did you get all of those out?
Yes, I mean, I feel our time, again, we look at ourselves as community partner and open to conversations with any and all of you at any time. I very much appreciate Chief Niblock and Matt Brozovich and the union coming and meeting with us directly. That's very powerful and important to our organization. And I appreciate the open dialogue this group has by and large had, and City Manager Staley was very open with us as well. To us, it's the pace of play seems very quick in light of the financial things that you were considering, but we also must give faith in our council that they're going to make the right decision and have the proper conversations. We just wish to bring forward 3 or 4 items for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Hoffert. We think we have one more question. Councilor Nishioka.
Thank you, Mayor Hoy. This is not so much a question, Tom, but that when this got brought up, you made the comment that the neighborhood associations weren't informed. I know that myself and another councilor have been forthright in presenting this information at the meetings, and so far, all of them have been in favor. I just wanted you to share that, because sometimes people think that something didn't get notified and may not have been in the regular way, but I have been making sure that my neighborhood associations knew about it.
Okay, that does beg a question back for me, Councilor Nishioka. So as of the 6th, when we were brought this information, we were informed this has not been a formal presentation to all neighborhood associations. Are you saying I was given incorrect information?
No, I'm not. I'm saying that I, as a counselor, provided information about what was discussed in the meeting. That's all. I'm just saying that I am reaching out as a counselor.
I appreciate your efforts, and I would hope fellow counselors are as well. Traditionally, a process would be a formal presentation by the city to a neighborhood association or with their shareholders, such as Salem Health and the like. If you're saying I am misunderstanding what has occurred, my sincere apologies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Brittany Randall.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Brittany Randall. I own a business in Ward 2, and tonight I'm not here to defend a land use case. Instead, I'm here to support the proclamation for Child Abuse Prevention Month, and I am nervous.
No need to be. Just take a breath.
I am a survivor of child sexual abuse, and unfortunately, my history is not unique. My abuser is a person who I trusted with every fiber of my being. This is a person who was supposed to protect me from the monsters who walk among us. The confusion and fear that I felt as a child has changed me. I was afraid of people who looked, smelled, or sounded like my abuser. The depths of the sadness, fear, and loneliness that children who are victims of abuse feel cannot be overstated. It's crippling, and when left unattended, can impact their future in unimaginable and terrifying ways. Seeing this proclamation on the Salem City Council agenda every year in anticipation of April is a fantastic way to shed light on this important issue. I am here to also ask and encourage you and those in each of your wards to take the trainings available to this community by Liberty House. There are 8 of them listed on their website alongside a comprehensive schedule of availability. And even if you do not interact with children regularly, your training could help save a child. I want to close with a quote from Aisha Siddiqui, and I might be saying her name incorrectly. She's a fierce CASA supporter. Be the person you needed when you were younger. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I think Councilor Stapleton would like to make a comment before you sit.
Thank you so much for coming down and talking. I too am a survivor of childhood sexual abuse, and it takes folks like you and I to be open and honest about our experiences to help shed light on a really serious cultural issue that we have across the world, but we'll focus here at home. It is a cultural issue, and we really just continue to just accept it as something we can't really change. And I believe that's wrong of us. And I really think that you are brave, and I really respect you coming down here and speaking in such an open way. I really respect that. And thank you so much. And we'll get through it, right?
Yes.
And we'll bring everybody else along.
Yes.
Okay, that's our job.
Yes.
I did have a question on this for the city manager. With the proclamation, I know that that is something that we do every year here, and it's something that we're proud to do, and it's something that, as politicians, I struggle because feeling powerless is something that's really hard for me because of my trauma from my past. But I had a really unique experience becoming a city councilor, because I thought I would be in a position to change this, and you realize just how powerless you still are, because it is a cultural thing, right? But I recognize that as politicians, this is what we can do. We can make a proclamation, we can keep bringing it up into the public forum, and it's really important to do that. I know in past years we have painted the town blue. Blue is the color of child abuse prevention. We have lit up the bridge blue, and a lot of different ways that we can help bring awareness as a city. Are we still planning on doing that this year? And I also wanted to bring this up for just general awareness for folks in here. When you see those blue ribbons, when you see those blue pinwheels, that's what this is about, and really want to just elevate that part of this conversation. So would love to know if we're still continuing to light up the bridge, and love to see as much as we can.
Yes, we can certainly light up the bridge. We just have to pick the dates, and whether we do it for a week or 2 or 3 or 4, I'm not sure, but we will make sure we have it lit for a period of time.
Okay, my vote is for all the days, but I know that it's usually for just a couple of weeks. But anyway, thanks again for coming down. I really, really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brittany. All right, now we're going to go online to Jackie Leung.
Hi, everybody. It's good to see you all.
Good to see you.
Quite a while. Oh.
Sorry.
What was that?
I said it was good to see you too.
My name is Jackie Leung. I'm she, they pronouns with the Micronesian Islander community. I'm speaking specifically on an upcoming agenda item, specifically about for Micronesian Islander community. I'm really excited because this is an opportunity for us to be able to move forward with a housing project that'll be dedicated for building 41 housing units, as well as having the first center for Micronesians here in the continental U.S. The only other location that has a Micronesian center is in Hawaii, as well as in Guam. So this will be the very first one here, not only in Oregon, but also in the rest of the U.S., which we are hopeful will move forward. And so I just wanted to show, do I actually have share rights? I don't. I had requested the opportunity to share my screen, but I don't think I have that ability, but it's okay. What I wanted to show really briefly was just a little bit of background about MIC, but I could just read off of it really quick. So MIC's mission is to organize social justice programs, preserve our cultures, and enhancing leadership through unifying our diverse communities. We decided to get together with the developer as well as with a real estate team to be able to build 41 brand new units specifically tailored for working families who face housing insecurity, who are often dealing with limited rental and credit history. And our goal is to be able to make this possible for not only members of our community, but also for anybody in the city of Salem who is in need of housing support. One important thing I wanted to mention about our future Voyagers Village, the community center itself will be a safe and affordable space for culture and educational programs. And our final rendition of it actually has a pig pit. And so one of our first things to do is be able to actually host a pig pit for when we have our grand opening. And we invite all city council to join us and to be able to enjoy some pig with us. Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you, Jackie. I'm really excited about this project. I remember you and I talking about this, what was it, maybe 4 years ago when we started this conversation. It's really exciting to see it come to fruition, and thank you for sticking with it and finding a site. And this item did get pulled off of the consent calendar to be able to highlight it, so it won't be on the consent, but it'll be under item 5, so just stay tuned for that. So did I see a hand? I did see a hand. And Councilor Nordyke has a comment or a question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and greetings, Ms. Leung. It's lovely to see you virtually tonight. I'm just curious, what is the size of the Micronesian population in Salem, and how many are school-aged children approximately?
Now, that's an important question. And the problem that we have with the U.S. Census is that until recently, until the last census, they never really identified Micronesians as Micronesians. So up until the 2020 census, people only would be able to mark that they were Pacific Islander or Native Hawaiian. And so in the 2020 census, they've now updated where people can actually choose to identify their ethnicity specifically, even like if they are Micronesian or where from Micronesia they're from. So that data we still know is incorrect. So I actually don't have a total number for you, but I could tell you offhand for the Salem-Keizer School District, within the top 5 languages, 2 of the top 5 languages are from communities who are Micronesian, specifically people who identify as Chukis and Marshallese.
Thank you. And just for an update, we are not pulling that item after all, so it will be on the consent calendar after all. So thank you for being here. All right, that concludes public comment for items on our agenda, so that means we are on to the consent calendar. Councilor Stapleton.
It's been a roundabout day today with our consent
bit.
calendars. I apologize, everybody. All right, I move approval of the consent calendar with the exception of item 3.2A, pulled by Councilor Gwynn.
Second.
Motion by Stapleton, second by Phillips. Councilor, to your motion.
Thank you so much. We have items 3.1A, the March 11th, 2024 draft City Council minutes. Item 3.2B, approving the resolution 2024-14, an initial property tax exemption for a nonprofit low-income housing owner in accordance with SRC 2.850 to 2.9.910. 3.3A, request to create a mid-year project for installation of a perimeter detection system at the Salem Airport. 3.3B, an amendment to the lease with Church of the Park for city-owned real property located at 2640 Portland Road. Item 3.3C, the ground lease with North Valley Hay and Farms, LLC for property located at 2301 Orchard Heights Road Northwest. And that concludes our consent calendar.
Thank you, Councilor. Is there discussion? Councilor Gwynn.
So this is my opportunity to highlight that project that Jackie was just talking about. I'm very, very excited about that one because not only is it 41 units, but only 3 of them are 1-bedroom units. There's 25 that are 2-bedroom and 13 that are 3-bedroom units, which means they're really probably families are going to be in there, which to me is super exciting. So that was all.
Thank you, Councilor. Further discussion, Councilor Nordyke.
Thank you. I just want to echo what Councilor Gwynn said. Our council has time and time again voted to approve a wide variety of affordable housing projects throughout the city, and I think it's work that we should all be proud of. But I really want to take my hat off to Jackie Leone and her community for bringing this to us, because if these proposals come to our desk, we're ready to work with you. We're ready to talk about what affordable housing can look like. And to Councilor Gwynn's point, it is so vitally important that we have family housing that is affordable for folks who want to raise their families right here in Salem. So I'm looking forward to an enthusiastic yes on this project.
Thank you, Councilor. Further discussion? Will the recorder please call the roll?
Counselor Gonzalez.
Aye.
Counselor Hoy.
Aye.
Counselor Nordyke.
Aye.
Counselor Varney. Aye. Counselor Stapleton.
Aye.
Counselor Nishioka.
Aye.
Counselor Phillips.
Aye.
Counselor Gwynn.
Aye.
Mayor Hoy.
Aye. Motion passes. All right, we have no public hearings tonight, so we're on to special orders of business. Item 5A, Revenue Task Force update. We have Colleen Rosillas from Moss Adams, remote, I believe. Yes, there she is. You are up, Colleen.
Good evening, everyone. You ready for me?
Yes.
Colleen Rosillas with Moss Adams, and I'm joined by Jessie Lenhart. And Jessie's going to share her screen. We have a short presentation for you tonight.
Can we turn up the volume just a little bit? It's a little bit difficult to hear her.
Let me switch to my AirPods.
It's on their end.
I'm sorry?
We'll need to do it from their end, Mayor.
Yes, I think so.
Okay, great.
Now we can't hear you at all.
Why not?
No, now we can.
Okay.
Maybe you weren't talking.
Oh, okay.
I thought you were.
Okay. Well, let's get going then. Jessie, could you go to the next slide, please? All right, so we're just going to give an update on the timeline tonight. We're going to dig into the focus group results. We conducted quite a few focus groups over the last couple of weeks, so I know you're excited for that.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Colleen. I don't know if I'm the only one, but it's very difficult to hear you. Colleen?
Which is really exciting. So we've had
Colleen?
3 meetings.
She can't hear me. We're having a night here with technology. Colleen, I apologize for interrupting you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. How am I doing?
Well, not so well. We're having a difficult time hearing you. So I don't know if you're far away from your microphone or what's going on, but we're having a hard time hearing you.
Okay, let me try something. Hold on.
And for your reference, you'll want to start over because I was talking over you most of the time, accidentally.
How's that?
That's better, I think. Yeah.
Okay, I'm just going to hold the phone to my ear like it's 2016, and we'll go with it. Okay.
Perfect.
All right. So tonight we're going to spend our time just going really quickly through where we are and dig into our focus group results. We are halfway through the Revenue Task Force at this point. We've held 3 meetings and we have 4 left to go. And I know you all received an update at the Budget Committee just last week. I just wanted to give you an update that the point where we're at right now is we're starting to deliberate the actual options with the task force, which is a huge chunk of work. And we've been really proud of how much they have dug into that so far. And they're a highly engaged team, which is very exciting. Jessie, could you move forward to the 3rd meeting slide? All right, and since you heard most of this last week in the Budget Committee, this is just an overview of what we did at the task force meeting last Monday. We started to dig into the decision framework that we'll use to assess the revenue options, and then we looked at those, we looked at 40 options, we eliminated some, and we got some information on high interest options, and it was a great meeting. We spent a lot of that meeting going through the focus group results, and so I'm gonna hand it over to Jessie to talk about those, and I hope that her sound works tonight.
Okay, this is the first test. How am I doing?
You're doing great.
Great. Okay. This is also my favorite part of talking about myself is telling people that I also used to do children's educational theater. So if I need to project, you just let me know. Ready. So I'm going to walk you all through focus groups, kind of how they came to be, and then also the results from them. So focus groups really were the very first iteration of gathering public feedback on kind of a framework and list of criteria. So focus groups are not typically part of what is a community survey or broad public outreach. They really are intentionally designed to gather specific feedback from a group of individuals down a very curated list of questions. So it was really important that we were able to host focus groups with representatives from every ward. We were able to do so. And so in order to do that, we reached out to folks through all of the channels that we use to recruit individuals for the task force, including social media and email outreach and posts on the city's website. We had 122 individuals express their interest in participating in focus groups. Due to a variety of reasons, namely technology and spelling errors related to emails, we sent out 101 invitations to people to participate. So we held focus groups in the evening from 6 to 8:30 p.m. For 2 weeks, and we had focus groups for every single ward. So the stats, we, like I said, were able to hear from representatives and folks from every single ward going left to right. That's a breakdown of the number of individuals as a percent of the total who participated. So you'll see that there was kind of a little bit lower turnout when we're looking at Ward 5 and Ward 6. We did a little extra outreach to those wards specifically in order to increase kind of participation and outreach and awareness to those folks in those areas. And ended up being able to get a couple more people who were interested and were able to recruit them to those focus groups. Overall, I'd say the majority of folks age-wise who were able to participate, we're looking at right around that 64 plus age. And that usually, it's not surprising, especially when we were looking at kind of how those demographics stacked up to the people that we noticed volunteered to participate to be part of the task force. So no real surprises there. And then also pretty consistent, about 81% of participants, people who were invited to participate, were white. Next up, we had Hispanic or Latino, with a couple of other folks representing the other race and ethnicity demographics. Then we also had almost an even split between individuals identifying as male and individuals identifying as female, with a couple who preferred not to say, and a few individuals identifying as non-binary. For political party, this is a little bit more split up. So here we see that the majority, and apologize that the colors are so close together, 53% of individuals who were invited to participate mentioned or volunteered to indicate that they were part of the Democratic Party. About 8% were Republican, 25% preferred not to say, and then that 4% are folks who expressed that they were part of an independent party, and then about 10% said that they were not affiliated. Household income, also kind of looking at, again, apologize, this Moss Adams colors, Colleen, we gotta have a conversation about this. The 49% is folks who have a household income of more than $100,000. So a little bit on the higher end when we're kind of looking at that. But when you look at everything, all of the other options, there's a pretty even mix across all of those. So that just gives you an idea of the type of folk that we were, that we reached out to and who provided their feedback for focus groups specifically. So focus groups, like I said, they follow a really scripted and prescriptive format. So there were 4 purposes to these focus groups. Number 1 was learning about people's current understanding of the city's revenue standing. So what do people know right now? So this really helps us identify any gaps and any areas where further information is needed. Number 2 was understanding communities' priorities and values around services provided by the city. So specifically, we looked at services provided through the general fund, and we evaluated this by asking people about their different levels of priorities around the city's strategic goals. We didn't expect anybody to be an expert on the different services that are provided through the general fund. So this was an adequate proxy to get people talking about the services that they value most and how those show up in their community. Number 3, we wanted to assess the community's priorities for various funding scenarios. And so as part of this path and as part of this journey, we're talking to task force members and also are now asking and introducing this topic to the community about really honing in on what that target looks like when we could fund a variety of different options. What is the community interested in funding as part of this process? And number 4, we were interested in capturing people's reactions to different revenue generating options. Anybody who is a member of the task force can tell you that the pre-read packets are no joke. And so we didn't expect anybody to show up at the focus groups to have read all of that or be an expert. Like I said, we were very interested in understanding where people were at as they are with their current understanding right now and where their preferences are.
Before you move on, could I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
So I'm finding those demographics that you outlined very dissatisfying or unsatisfying. Like, that doesn't represent our community in any way. Thank you. So what are we going to do to change that going forward? Because that, like, on almost every one of those pie charts, seemed like we didn't hit the target.
Correct, and that wasn't the goal of focus groups. The goal of focus groups was to really make sure that we got ward representation, and this is just one of part of several community outreach opportunities. So immediately after this is a statistically significant community survey where feedback similar to the topics that were part of the focus groups are going to be asked to the community in one that is representative of the City of Salem's demographics. So you're absolutely correct. In addition to the community survey, we're also doing town halls. And so that's going to be another opportunity for folks to show up. And while it's not going to be statistical, there will be qualitative information gathered about where people are coming from.
So just to, I want to make sure I understand what you're saying. So when we do that statistically significant survey, we're going to keep going until we find a representative group of the community demographic. Is that accurate? So
yes.
So you're not going to stop until we get there. It's not going to be a matter of first come, first served. It's going to make sure that that is reflective of our community. Is that right?
You're correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, good question. Okay. So as part of focus groups, we had a couple of different ways that we engaged with the people who were able to show up. So there were polling questions, there was some open-ended questions, some discussion, and then also some topics that were provided and we asked people to answer via the chat. So what we have on the next 2 slides are some themes that we heard about from the focus groups. So number 1 really was an overwhelming interest in more transparent and accessible information. So the city has done a lot to put a lot of information out there. And one of the things that we learned in focus groups was that there's an opportunity to maybe bring it together, simplify it, make it more accessible again for people who are not experts in navigating all of the ways and all of the areas that the city does communicate its information. Most common topics of interest to individuals who showed up for focus groups was a demonstration of trade-offs. And so it was, while the conversation really was focused on revenue, there were lots of conversations about the full equation of not only finding funding mechanisms, but also what cuts are taking place, what efficiency measures are in place in order to take a holistic look at the full equation of kind of understanding the city-state of revenue. So a lot of those subtopics fall into that area. And then the last one that was of most concern, or there's a top question from participants really was also, if we raise money, how are we going to spend it? So that goes back to that transparency, understanding the flows of money in, out, and all around the city, and then how it shows up in the community. So next set of takeaways, separating revenue from budget considerations was really challenging for folks. For a lot of people, it really is interconnected. We've known all along that those conversations are very connected. It's an important part to look at the whole equation, even though we understand that a lot of the topics that are being discussed and the focus of those conversations really is around revenue generation and those funding mechanisms. There's some concerns among focus group participants with infrastructure being able to keep up with the pace of growth. And a lot of feedback that parks and the library are really highly valued. So those are a tremendous community asset. We heard that loud and clear from focus groups. People really enjoy the offerings that are available in the city and really would like to keep those going. So like I said, we had a variety of discussion questions, but then also some polls. So polling question number 1, we were interested, it goes back to that first purpose of the focus groups, really understanding where people are at and how they're showing up with their current understanding. So again, apologies that the colors are pretty close. But polling question number 1, we asked people to kind of rate their current level of understanding of the city's current revenue standing and situation. So the majority of folks kind of fell within that nice bell curve right in the middle. Some 41% indicating that they knew a little bit more than most, 38.5% indicating a moderate amount, only 10.25% said very little, and also about 10.25% said that they were ready to give a TED Talk. So we got a pretty good mix analytically. Like I said, that bell curve, the majority of folks fell right in the middle. Polling question number 2, from the following options, we asked participants to choose the one that felt the most aligns with their outlook. So this really looked at understanding the community's perspectives on how to address revenue. So either through finding additional funding mechanisms or through strictly making cuts to services or through a combination of both. So 35.9% and 38.5% respectively. So that 38.5 indicated that they know the city has a shortfall and they think that they should both look at ways to cut services and also look for ways to increase revenue. 35.9% indicated that the city has a shortfall but should not cut services and only look for ways to generate more revenue. And then again, kind of towards the outside, we had a fewer respondents. 2.6% shared that they did not believe that the city had a shortfall. 12.8% indicated that the city should only cut services, and 10.3% indicated that they didn't feel like they knew enough to make that decision. So that goes back to opportunities to provide additional information to the community. Polling question number 3 really looked at, again, honing in on those targets. So what are we aiming for when we put together different funding mechanisms, and kind of that, we know that not one is going to be the silver bullet or the right answer. So when we're looking at putting together recommendations, really understanding and starting to hone in on the number, the gap that we are trying to fill with some of these options. So this, very interestingly, was all across the board. And so in some of the previous documents that you are able to find on the city's website, we illustrated various pathways for people to choose. So pathway 1, it goes from kind of least to most expensive. So pathway 1 is do nothing. All the way to pathway 6 is do everything. And then also what might it cost to enhance or increase services for the city without knowing what that might be. So that would be an opportunity to learn a little bit more. Each of those pathways, like I said, are available in some of the city documents and handouts that have been going around. But they focus on kind of putting together any possible combination of maintaining staff, maintaining service levels, and then also providing ongoing sheltering services. So we also know that we, like I said, didn't expect people to show up being tax experts. So we asked them, and as part of this process, we're interested in understanding people's values when they think about how they are evaluating revenue. So all of this feedback is incorporated into a decision-making framework, and so this set of criteria can be used to put together kind of an analysis of every revenue option in order to categorize them in terms of ones that are more or less viable or ones that are going to be more or less preferred. So sustainability really looks at one-time versus ongoing revenue options. And so that was of most importance to individuals and focus groups. Equity, that sense of things being equal, was also very important. This also talks about kind of the difference in the spectrum between regressive and progressive tax measures. Estimated revenue potential is also third important. So this really looks at what is the potential of a funding mechanism over time. Is it fairly low? Is it going to be pretty high? Impact on the local economy. Thinking about if they're evaluating a funding mechanism or a revenue option based on its impact to the economy and grading those that would potentially have a negative impact as lower. Impact on the environment really ties back to the city's strategic goals of being good stewards of the natural environment. And so revenue options or funding mechanisms that would have an adverse impact on the environment would be ranked lower. Legal viability has to do with whether or not something could get passed, if it needed to, and then also what might need to be done in order for something to be legally viable was 6. Impact timeline has to do with how soon revenue could be realized from an option. So this looks at evaluating different revenue options based on whether you could see results within 1 year, 2 year, 5 years, 10 years plus. Level of administrative effort was pretty far down the list, but we all know that it's going to be really important to think about how much of an administrative effort goes into realizing and executing on any funding option or revenue option. And so making sure that the level of effort is not greater than the return on that investment is an evaluative criteria. And then the least important for people was whether or not it has been successful in peer city. So I think through a lot of the conversations, we've demonstrated how city is in a somewhat unique position. And so whether or not something has worked well in another city was determined to be of least importance when evaluating different revenue options and how highly it would get rated as a result. One question number 5 was a little investing game. And so like I said, we didn't expect people to be experts on all of the services that are provided through the general fund. And so what we did was took the city's 6 strategic goals and played a little investing game. So we gave them $600 Monopoly dollars and we asked them to invest across the city's strategic goals. For the sake of having this PowerPoint be somewhat legible, we truncated them, but did provide kind of the full readout of the strategic goals so people had an understanding behind what does it mean to have a safe community, what does it mean to have a welcoming and livable community, what typically shows up under each one of those strategic goal areas. And we asked people to invest. So where would you invest your Monopoly monies? So number 1, on average, people invested 27.1% of their Monopoly money in a safe community. So that includes kind of police, fire, emergency response, emergency preparedness. Next highest is that 22%, 135 Monopoly money going to safe, reliable, and efficient infrastructure. So it's looked at city facilities, also sidewalks, roads, streetlights, parks, and a lot of those pieces. And then third at the top of the list was a welcoming and livable community. And so the biggest part of kind of what you see here, with there being a somewhat even distribution across each one of the strategic goals, was really highlighting how integrated a lot of those services are. So when you think of having a welcoming and livable community, there was a lot of conversation about how intricately that is connected with having a safe community and what that means. So next up, like I said, we are, our partners, DHM, are going to be launching a statistically significant community survey that's going to be taking place April 2nd through 8th. We also have those 3 town halls that Keith shared earlier tonight, April 10th, 16th, and 23rd. We have communication going out around those, so some save the dates. 2 of them are going to be in person, 1 of them will be virtual. And then you'll see us all again April 22nd, just a couple of days ahead of the April 25th Revenue Task Force meeting number 4. And so that one will really start to look at, as Colleen mentioned, focusing in and starting to get into some decision making around the different revenue options.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the Moss Adams team?
Councilor Nordyke.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I wasn't clear from that last slide. Where did support for the library fall into any of those categories of that pie chart you just described? That's my first question.
Yeah, great question. We didn't have people invest in the library specifically, so when we had conversations about the library, most often it fell under having a welcoming and livable community.
And which?
Number 3.
That was number 3. Okay, thank you. And then my next question, I was taking a look at the task force revenue materials with revenue options specifically. I see that the task force is examining a wide variety of revenue options, which is great because this is the time to look at any and all possibilities. But when I did a quick search of those revenue options, I didn't see anything called out specifically to fund the library. There are things like payroll taxes, personal income taxes, all kinds of things that which could potentially include funding for a library, but I didn't see anything specifically that would help drive revenue to the library. Has that been discussed? Am I missing something here? Help me fill in the blanks.
I can take that one. So we're looking at general fund options, and the library, as you know, is part of the general fund. And so what we're looking right now is at broad revenue to sustain all general funded city services. The council will certainly have the option to look at dedicated revenue for the library or other community services, but the scope of the task force is very much all general fund and not specifically any service funded by the general fund.
Thank you.
Councilor Hoy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Will any of the town halls be offered in other languages other than English?
Yes, we are planning to have sign and Spanish interpretation available at the in-person events, and also are working on coordinating having Spanish interpreters available at the virtual town hall.
Thank you.
Are there other questions for the Moss Adams team? All right, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah. We are on to item 5B, but before we do that, I think we should take a 5-minute break. Thank you, everybody, and thank you for your diligent attention to time. We are on item 5B. This is the Salem Fire Department proposal for reintegration of ambulance services, and I'm going to turn it over to the city manager to get us started.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council, members of the community. I just wanted to kick this one off and offer a little bit of city manager perspective. We definitely do not have the answers to all of the questions, although many of the questions that Mr. Morris asked, I believe we have responded to, perhaps not directly to him, but through the Chamber of Commerce. With the many issues that we're faced with, that is often the situation and often the case. We are in the business of dealing with complex problems and issues that don't often have clear-cut or simple solutions. Our recent decision to move forward with commercial air service is a very good example of that. When we decided to move forward with bringing commercial air service to Salem Municipal Airport on January 9, 2023, there were many unknowns. We were pressed for time. There wasn't a budget. There were regulatory hurdles that needed to be cleared. There were staffing issues. There was equipment to acquire. We were unsure of the timeline, the cost of construction, the size of the response of the market, and so much more. We ask you to commit $2 million on the terminal and nearly $700,000 per year of general fund dollars on that venture. We did that work in an open and transparent way to refine our plans and put ourselves in a position to be successful. We were not assured we'd meet that timeline, finalize construction, receive TSA approvals, obtain the equipment, hire the staff, ink the contracts, and all the other work required for commercial service to materialize until the morning of October 5th, 2024, when the Avelo Airlines 737 taxied to the gate. While the long-term success of Avelo and passenger service is far from a sure thing, we have done the work to be well-positioned for success, and we are seeing the fruits of those investments. It would not have happened if we had waited to have all of the answers. I think we are in the same place with ambulance service this evening. Monday, this evening, we're asking you once again to put your faith and trust in us. We've done the work to understand that there's an opportunity here that we should take advantage of. You have skilled professionals who are ready to lean into this opportunity to deliver improved ambulance service to our community. There are risks, indeed. There are unanswered questions, of course. Will we find our way forward? Absolutely. And with that, I'll turn it over to Chief Niblock.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Fire Chief Mike Niblock. It's a pleasure to be here this evening. I just want to start. We've got our consultants online if we want to dig into the weeds with questions, but I just want to start and address a couple of comments that were made this evening just to correct the information, to make sure you have the correct information from our perspective. So we have Rich Buchanan here from AP Triton and Kurt Hinke, who's one of the principals with AP Triton here as well, available if questions come up. The first thing I want to say is I appreciate the opportunity the last 2 weeks to be able to meet with the Chamber and the leadership. We had about a 1-hour session, lots of questions and answers. And so I felt like it was a good opportunity to have that conversation. So I appreciate Tom setting that up, and I appreciate the conversations. I'm going to repeat some of the things I said last week or 2 weeks ago. I believe, as Fire Chief, this is the right recommendation for our citizens and our community that we are sworn to protect. It's revenue positive after operating expenses. It does not impact the general fund. I think that's important for everybody to hear. It does not impact the general fund. This money comes into the EMS fund, and all the wages and salaries and all the costs be paid right out of the EMS fund. So it's an enterprise fund separate of the general fund. We don't have to make a profit like Falck does. We don't have to make a profit. We can reinvest the dollars that are positive in this back into our community and our EMS system. That's an option we do not have right now. We are not proposing a static staffing model that was suggested this evening. We are proposing a dynamic staffing model. The study uses 24-hour cars to compare total hours in the system to total hours in the system. So we compare different models, apples to apples. We are proposing 12-hour cars in the system. and they will be adjusted based on the needs and the peak times of the day, just like that's run right now. So we are not proposing a static model. And speaking of the current Falcon employees, we don't want to get the cart before the horse, but our issue is not with their paramedic skills or their EMT skills or their commitment to the community. Our issue is with Falc not being able to provide enough of them to meet the contractual needs of the city and us having to subsidize them for the last 2.5 years. We intend, when the timing is right, once the decisions are made, to have a recruitment process for the current Falc employees, and we would welcome them to come work in our system, and we hope that they do. So just to put people's minds at ease, we anticipate this will be a unionized workforce. We welcome that. We're fine with that. And so I just wanted to say that it's not about their ability to deliver service in the community, their paramedic skills, or anything like that. So we appreciate what they do. They run all the same calls we run. It's about the ability to have enough ambulances in the system. You know that we heard a lot of things tonight about what they're going to do, what they're going to do. And for the last 27 months, we've been hearing the same thing. Overpromise and underdeliver. And we know that through this study that we have a model that will work, a model that will be sustainable, a model that will be scalable, and will have some revenue for us to have options that we don't have right now in the community. And with that, I guess I would be happy to answer any questions or have our consultant come on and answer any questions that you have. I will say in closing, we need time is expedient, needs to be expedient here. We have a lot of things to do in the next 16 months to be ready to do this. And if we continue to delay this, we are getting to the point where we won't be able to be successful to have our start in July 1st. So time is of the essence. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Let's start with questions. Councilor Phillips, did you? Microphone, please.
Yes, I thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Chief, for coming up to talk again tonight. I mean, I think you've addressed like the main concerns that I had in hearing the additional testimony that came in from the employees of Falc. You know, as a counselor who has to vote on this, it would be my hope that we could retain those qualified community members who are providing care. You know, I think that's what I have heard as a counselor mentioned every single time. So, you know, as long as there's a bridge and an effort to keep them here and working in our community, I think you spoke to it about like we don't have, when this comes back in our house, like the city of Salem, we don't have to worry about making a profit. So I guess, you know, could you speak a little bit more to that? Do we have any sense of like what their overhead is? Like in comparison, like we'll just be spending money on the system. We don't have to, you know, reimburse any shareholders or make a profit. So can we, do you have any more data on that, or do our consultants have any more data on that?
Well, I guess what I would say is right now we are predicting based on the estimates in the model, and they addressed about how many employees. We anticipate starting with 42 and going up from there. It'll probably be closer to 60 when we get fully staffed, but we're going to be cautious about that. We anticipate about $10.5 million of expenses per year to operate this system. And remember, this is very conservative. These are very conservative figures. So this is a 28% collection rate. I believe it'll be higher than that. We're bringing a fee increase in front of you July. We based the model off of $2,200. We're going to be asking for $2,400 for transport. That puts extra money in the system. And then there's the GEMT portion of it. So we're looking at a minimum of $6.3 million a year in beyond our operating costs. So I mean, if it costs us another $1 million because we got to do something to make it right, then we're going to do that. But we still have our backs aren't against the wall, and we have options down the road to invest in capital, to reinvest in making sure the ambulances are maintained. That's all built into that $10.5 million. So we've thought about all those things, all the costs that are associated with it. They're all in there. So the money above that is allows us to do things we can't do right now, and that does get reinvested back in our community. We're not paying 30 to 40% profit to the parent company. We're going to be the parent company.
Yeah. I mean, as a follow-up, thank you for that information. it seems like we'd be in a stronger position to pay livable wages to our, potential future employees.
Absolutely.
Am I reading that wrong?
No.
Yeah, okay.
I have a couple of questions, Chief. Yes. Does the advent of this new fund for non-governmental entities change your calculation in any material way?
Are you talking about the QAF?
Yes.
So that's brand new. I spent the last week learning a whole bunch of stuff about it because it just came out. It's very complex. My understanding is they have to pay in ahead of time to the state, and then monies are allocated back out to private companies. The difference is that money doesn't come to the city of Salem, it goes to Falck. So GEMT comes to the city. So those are the big differences. That's about all I know about QAF right now. I mean, we can do some more research, but at the end of the day, us controlling the employees, the wages, the hiring, the recruitment, puts us in a better position than relying on a third party to do that. And when they don't deliver, then we're stuck with doing liquidated damages, and we're still supplementing them to provide service to the community, and it's just not working.
Thank you. You heard me earlier ask the representative from Falck about why that hybrid model, why that might be a viable option or why it might not. Can you speak to why you don't think that's a viable option?
Absolutely, just for the reasons I just mentioned. So you're not in control of the employees, you're not in control of wages, you're not in control of negotiations of the contract. So they're in control of all that, and they charge you an hourly rate to transport. And so it's not one. We did look at that model. That was one of the models that was evaluated. It was not recommended for us. Some of the cities in California run that. Some of the cities in California have their fire departments have to bid against privates to get the contract. But this isn't California, this is Oregon. And I think for those reasons, this is the best model for us moving forward versus leaving all that control in their hands right now, because they're not successful at recruiting right now.
Thank you. Councillor Hoy.
Thank you. Chief, can you explain maybe just the reason why this seemed to come up so quickly?
Well, I guess maybe from your perspective or the community's perspective, it did. We've been monitoring this for the last 27 months. We have given them, in the last 4 years, I think we've increased their fees 42% with the promises that they will be able to recruit better. We did a mid-year adjustment last year of 12% or 15% for them to recruit better. It got better for about 15 months, and then it crashed again. And now, for the last almost 52 weeks, we have been 4 or 5 cars down a day. So it's not that we haven't been a good partner and we haven't tried to make it work, but at the end of the day, they just have not. They've overpromised and underdelivered. And one of the things that was pointed out to me tonight by our consultant was many times private ambulance companies, towards the end of the contract, they start sweetening the pot. Well, they just gave a huge raise to their employees. They're trying desperately to fix this. And then after the contract's renewed, then it goes back to status quo. And we've seen that rinse and repeat for 20 years here.
And Chief, just to clarify, you've said 4 or 5 cars down a day. When you say cars, you mean ambulances?
Medic units, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's
so for the rest
slang.
Of us, yeah.
Ambulances.
I just wanted to make sure the public understood the language you were using.
Yeah.
Thank you. Are there additional questions? Councillor Gwynn.
I was just hoping, Chief, that you could remind us why we went away from, or why we went to this model to begin with.
So this is right before I came here in 2004. In 2003, Medicare, Medicaid changed they capped their fees. So you couldn't charge a full. So if you were charging, say, $1,000 for an ambulance ride, they were going to pay back then probably $300. That's all you could collect. And the other $700 was bad debt write-off. And we were in the ambulance business and we were in the transport business. We were running about 12,000 calls a year, 13,000 calls a year. And managed the system. We had day cars, we had peak period cars. It was the firefighter model, so it was the dual role, so the most expensive model that you can have, which is not what we're proposing here. And we just took a look, at a 5-year forecast and said, nah, we're not sure this is going to be a good business to be in. And so we hired a consultant. We looked at what was out there. There were some other places that were similar to us that were going to a third-party provider. We wrote a super strong RFP. We went out to bid. We hired Rural Metro Ambulance the first 10 years. We got through it. There was challenges there too. And then in 2015, we did it again. with Falck Ambulance. And now, in 2016, GEMT has become available, so we can recover about 70% of our costs in the Medicaid field, which is a pretty good percentage of our calls. I think 25% of our calls are Medicaid. And so that equals about $4.3 million a year based on last year's calls. Our call volume's up 13.9% this year, so those numbers are going to keep going up. If you remember from our presentation from our consultant, we're an elderly community, and there's a lot of medical needs, so a lot of critical medical needs. So I don't see that going down. I don't see that trend going the other direction. So now there's a funding mechanism that puts us on more stable footing. When we went out of the business in 2005, we had $7 million in our EMS account, so we weren't broke. The system wasn't failing. It was just a forward look to say, we're not sure this is going to be the best business model. So we changed our business model. Things have changed since then, and I believe this is the best business model for this community moving forward.
Councilor Varney.
This is kind of a quick one. Are you considering any electric vehicles?
No, not at this point. For ambulances?
Uh-huh.
I'm not even sure they make electric ambulances right now. They do, yeah. Well, we haven't even looked at that yet.
Okay.
So that would be my quick answer there, yeah.
Thank you.
Other questions? Councilor Stapleton.
Thank you so much, Mayor. So a little bit going off of Councilor Hoy's question, as far as the timing of this, you all started this study back in the fall of last year?
September, I think, so 6 months ago.
Yeah. So this has all been kind of building up.
Yes,
a little
yeah,
bit.
yeah.
Okay.
It's been building up for 27 months, and then we started the study. I will say that our medical program director was intimately involved in communications about this, and I'm not going to say anything more about that, but was supportive.
Okay. I have one more.
Yeah.
Earlier, you were talking about increasing fees, and I want to be careful with that verbiage when we are talking about this in a public space where folks maybe don't know exactly who's paying that fee.
Right.
Could you talk a little bit about how that works and who
Yes.
is paying that fee?
So most of the fee is going to be paid by your commercial insurance, healthcare insurance, and so most people have a copay or whatever with their commercial insurance, and most of that bill is going to be paid by the commercial insurance. The private pay or people with no insurance, they're not going to pay their bill anyway. Medicare, Medicaid is capped at a certain amount, so they're not going to pay that bill. You're still going to get that 70% through the GMT back through the Medicaid. So really the focus is on the insurance companies that are providing health insurance.
Thanks for clearing that up.
You bet.
Additional questions? Councilor Nordyke.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Chief, for the presentation and for the considerable packet of information provided this evening. Always appreciate it. Talk to me a little bit about what the potentials are for creating a mobile crisis unit if we were to move to an in-house ambulance service model. And for those who may be unfamiliar with a mobile crisis unit, I'm talking about a civilian-based unit, not staffed by police, but staffed by peer support specialists or crisis workers or others who are there to help, for example, the low acuity calls, like persons who are struggling with homelessness, persons who might need a Band-Aid but don't necessarily need emergency room level of care. Can you talk to us about what that might look like?
Absolutely. So I addressed this, I think, 2 weeks ago. Councilor Phillips brought it up. The one thing I would say is I would exercise caution, and maybe a better word is restraint, on how fast we jump into that business. But I think down the road, 3-4 years, I think once we are stabilized, we've got our loans repaid, we're up and running, we know what the system's demands are. Absolutely, we could look at community paramedicine, we could look at mobile, CAHOOTS model, if you will. I think there's a lot of different models that you could look at with the community, and you would have funding to be able to address some of those things. I would just, like I said, I would just exercise caution. We can't do it tomorrow because it's 16 months before we even start this process if this is approved tonight. So give us some time to get our feet underneath us, and then I think there would be opportunities for lots of discussions about reinvesting in our community with our EMS fund.
Councilor Phillips.
Thank you again, Mayor, and thank you again, Chief. I thought of another question, and I'm not sure how best to phrase this. Clearly, the pandemic, it feels like it broke the wheels off the system in this case, but was the system working perfectly before the pandemic, or were there issues before the pandemic as well? Let me preface that with, it felt like there were some issues beforehand as well.
Yes, there were some issues beforehand. The pandemic didn't help anybody. No. Let's just say that. They come along every 100 years, and thank God for that they don't happen more often. Yes, it was challenging for everybody, but there were issues. Yeah. So it's not just the pandemic.
Additional questions? You ready for a motion? All right, Councilor Stapleton.
Thank you so much. I move that the City Council authorize the City Manager to allow Salem Fire Department to proceed with the approval of Option 2, which is the ambulance operator model, designating the Fire Department as the exclusive provider of ambulance service starting January 1st, 2025, thereby discontinuing the practice of subcontracting with an external contractor for ambulance services within the community. And I did that all in one breath, and I'm very proud of myself.
Second.
Motion by Stapleton, second by Phillips. Councilor, to your motion.
Thank you. I really appreciate, thank you to the fire chief and to the city manager for providing so much information and guidance for all of us. I know I feel very prepared and confident to come in here and make this decision tonight. You've done that through contracting with an outside source to do a really thorough look at the services provided and given us really good options to consider. And I feel like this is the best that we can do at this point in time for our community as far as enhancing efficiency and effectiveness, and also really just for the best interest for the residents of Salem and for the future. Councilor Nardic was just talking about a future of a cahoots model style or even some home care that I know Councilor Varney is really interested in, and especially with our aging population. I feel like this is a really good setup for a future where we are continuing to evolve and become the big city that we are with a lot of different dynamics at play. And I think that this will position us well to respond to the community's needs.
Thank you, Councilor. Additional comments? Councilor Phillips.
Yeah, thank you. I support this motion emphatically. I got to be careful here. So, I think I'm thoroughly prepared as a counselor with the data provided by staff, but my day job is that I'm an emergency room doctor and have been since 2008 in our community. I'm speaking on behalf of myself and my own experiences. I'm not an employee of Salem Health. That's where I practice, but I'm an independent contractor. We have our own independent group that has the exclusive contract with the hospital. So with that being said, I have utter respect for the medics in our community that work for Falck. Their service is vital. It saves lives. They've done a great job in their individual capacity. But when you have 16, 27 months of not meeting your contractual obligations, that's a problem. And this system it hasn't worked in the way that it was brought to the city initially, and I think it's the time for change, especially with some of the funding changes at the federal level. So I'm convinced. I can't speak on behalf of any of my colleagues, but unofficially, I've heard nobody that's opposed to this in my field of practice. The medics have been largely underpaid for years, what feels like a decade or more. And I think that this helps us, fill in that gap and make us more competitive. I think that there, will be some risks that we can handle. The data shows that we can as a community, and I'm encouraged that it gives us the strongest foot forward. There may still be issues recruiting, but by being able to cut out a middle person and that need for profit, I think that it'll make us stronger in our ability to attract talented paramedics and medics moving forward.
Thank you, Councilor. Further comments? Councilor Nordyke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank all of the Falck employees who came out to speak tonight. I appreciate where you're coming from. And I want to say that in the event that this proposal does move forward tonight, the recruitment process for Falck employees is something that I hope that the fire chief will make a high priority. Everyone who's working deserves to feel that job security. And knowing what will happen after tonight is something that me as an employee, I would want to know. So I take the fire chief at his word when he says that there would be a recruitment process for current Falcon employees. We know that our existing paramedics and EMTs provide a vital service, a life-saving service to our community. And I don't want anyone to slip between the cracks as a part of this process. These folks provide incredibly important care to some of our most vulnerable members of the community. And it is a tough, tough job. Another thing that I think is really important is we've heard the stats, and the current model is just not working. It's not just the staffing issues, it's also the $3.3 million in overtime that we have also had to spend coming out of our pockets. So I am prepared to vote yes on this. And of course, I'm also excited anytime I hear even the slightest mention that the city will consider a mobile crisis unit. We're only 30 plus years behind the city of Eugene, but it is still not too late for our city to see the light and see the life-saving benefits that can be provided by creating a full spectrum of public safety services, not just high acuity care, but lower acuity care. A lot of calls that currently don't get answered at all or don't have the appropriate level of response. So I see all kinds of potential for that. And I understand we can't do it today or tomorrow. I would have liked to have done it 3 to 4 years ago, but I will accept the possibility that this can come of age in the future. So I really want to appreciate all of the detailed information, but I will be voting in favor of the ambulance operator model. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Are there additional comments? Councilor Nishioka.
Thank you, Mayor Hoy. I would agree and echo all the comments that my fellow councilors have made. And I also just want to add another aspect that I feel is pretty important. The Willamette Valley Call Center will be initiating a more robust emergency medical dispatch, a digital format, and this will also be getting in the system, and I think it's a wonderful time so that as our ambulance service and fire service are joined, we'll have the call center that will be updating how they take calls, and I feel that it will enhance the whole system and will be much more effective.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Varney.
Thank you, Mayor Hoy. I would like to propose an amendment to the motion on the floor. That's okay? I move to amend the main motion to add, at the end of it, and by May 13th, an implementation plan be submitted to council and a fire department oversight committee be established to oversee implementation and operation of the ambulance operator model.
Second.
Councilor, to your motion.
I am supportive of our discussion and everything here. I felt that we needed to add a little bit more to this motion to address some of the concerns that have been brought up in the community. During public testimony, it was mentioned that there were concerns about not having a transition or an implementation plan. There are also concerns about lack of community involvement. When I presented this at my neighborhood association meeting a couple of weeks ago, the concerns they echoed were the same. They wanted to know the how. How are we going to do this? And they also wanted to be involved. You know, they wanted to know where that input was coming from. So I realized that regarding our system, what we're currently doing isn't working, and we do need to change. But I wanted to add this little bit onto there just to add to the motion.
Thank you, Councilor. Is there additional discussion to the amendment? Councilor Stapleton, and then Phillips.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to follow up and thank Councilor Varney for this amendment. I think I was talking with the city manager about that this morning, just kind of letting him know what was coming, and he was also in full support, knowing that when we do big things like the airport, right, we had a committee formed for that as well. So this is really kind of a same large project that we're tackling with a lot of unknowns, and so it seems fitting that we would likewise have some oversight and some help from hopefully maybe you Counselor Varney in and just seeing this through and making sure that it goes smoothly or as smoothly as possible. So thanks for bringing the motion forward.
Councillor Phillips.
Yeah, thank you for the motion. I just want to make sure that I understand kind of what we're voting on now. So I want to confirm, it sounds like staff is okay with this, like it won't, get in the way of moving forward?
Mr. City Manager?
Yes, as I understand the motion, we are still moving forward with implementation starting tomorrow morning. And as long as that is the case, I am fully on board and supportive. I think the steering committee is appropriate, and I think the report is necessary. And we plan that as part of implementation is to develop an implementation report. The report the 129 pages that is in City Council's backup materials this evening is not an implementation plan, and that will come next. Now, will it be 100% complete on May 13th? Probably not. We will probably still have work to do by then, but we certainly will come back with a draft or with whatever we have and be able to provide you the updates that are necessary to keep this moving forward.
My follow-up, I appreciate that information, and I think I may support this amendment. I just want to make sure I'm looking for a paraphrase or an agreement that is the goal of this to really maybe plural goals for like transparency and communication to the entire community, but like also focusing on ensuring as much as we can codify the transition of the current Falck employees. Is that part of what I heard as part of this amendment?
I don't think it got into that level of detail, but I certainly think that the chief heard us earlier when we vocalized that as a priority, that there's a smooth transition, and then we bring on as many of those employees as meet our qualifications and is appropriate. But I didn't hear that in the councilor's amendment because it was just more of the plan and an oversight committee. Those details, I think, will be left to the staff because we're not the detail people, we're the policy people. Right. Councilor Varney, and then we'll go to the city manager.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to add, so what we were missing was we need a transition plan that has a timeline, details on the acquisition of personnel and ambulances to meet our city's growing EMS needs, and potential benchmarks and goals. I believe this project is of a project of this magnitude and the impact to Salem citizens warrants an additional layer of oversight. So those are the primary reasons behind it.
Did you have something more, Mr. City Manager?
I have nothing more to add. I think that clarified it perfectly. Thank you.
Thanks. Councilor Hoy.
Thank you. I'm just curious, when you say oversight committee, what does that look like? How many people is that? Or is that who is that?
Go ahead.
We had a similar steering committee for the airport, the commercial air service. We met on a monthly basis. We had 3 counselors and several community members involved in that effort, and it was extraordinarily helpful for me and for Brian and the engineering team and keeping us on track and frankly reducing the friction in the system because it cut off the supposition and the daisy chain communications, and it allowed us to directly talk to stakeholders and interested parties, and I thought it was remarkably successful and would look to do the same with this process.
Additional comments on the amendment. Councilor Nordijk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I understand the motion, it's painted in very broad strokes only. It's not talking about what the implementation plan looks like. It doesn't talk about how many people are on a steering committee, let alone when they meet. It's not designed to be that specific, and I get that. Which tells me that's also subject to interpretation as we move forward. So where I stand, I'm inclined to vote for it. I recognize that May 13 is an ambitious timeline, but I think a draft plan by May 13, a draft is possible. And I also like the idea of the steering committee concept because I was on the steering committee for the airport with Mayor Hoy and other members of this room. And it was effective because it helped us move forward without getting in the city staff's way. That is magic. When you can make that happen, then you are actually holding people accountable, keeping the ball rolling, but you're not, making city staff stumble along the way. So those would be kind of two of the things, and there's, of course, one little additional thing. As part of that implementation, I hope that this will also include a long-term consideration of adding a mobile crisis unit and what that might look like in years to come.
I'm not familiar with what that is. What are you talking about?
Yeah. So I will look forward to a potential implementation plan and subject to further council comments and advice and steering, of course.
Thank you, Councilor.
You'll find that in the last chapter of the report.
Is there further discussion on the amendment to the motion? We're just talking about the amendment here, not the original motion. Councilor Hoy.
Is it possible to ask the chief how he feels about this amendment?
You can ask him, and I'm sure he'll give an answer consistent with the city manager if he's as wise as I think he is. But we can ask.
Mike Niblock, Fire Chief. Yes, I'm fine with it. I think I've been involved in some of the bond steering committees before. I think it's good communication. It's good to get, the small group of councilor direction as we move through. This is a big decision for the community. And I think we will have not a completed, plan, but we'll have a substantive portion of it done in May or before May, because we really are going to start tomorrow morning. We've got work to do and a lot of work to do, so we take it very seriously, and any help we can get from our electeds is appreciated.
Thank you.
How's that for an answer?
That was good. I just wanted to address the issue of not being bogged down,
I don't, with the way this motion's made, I don't feel like we're being bogged down. I mean, we're going to be able to start tomorrow and get busy, so I don't feel bogged down at all.
Further discussion on the amendment. Councilor Gwynn.
I was just going to say I can definitely support the motion.
Thank you. So let's, is there further discussion on the amendment only? We'll get to the main motion after that, but let's call the roll on the amendment.
Councilor Hoy.
Aye.
Councilor Nordijk.
Aye.
Councilor Varney. Aye. Councilor Stapleton.
Aye.
Councilor Nishioka.
Aye.
Councilor Phillips.
Aye.
Councilor Gwynn.
Aye.
Councilor Gonzalez.
Aye.
Mayor Hoy.
Aye. Motion passes. So now the motion is the entire motion with the original and the amendment. And I think I have some comments I was going to make before we got to the amendment, but that's all right. Now we're dealing with the whole thing. I am ready to support this motion. It isn't without question. I certainly have questions, and I'm looking forward to the process going forward. But I do think that anytime you try to operate a government, then you subcontract some of the services to a for-profit company, there are challenges, especially when you're dealing with people's lives. Because I always have a hard time with profit and people's lives and balancing those two things. And I don't know that it's kind of just fraught from the get-go. And I appreciated the chief's comments about how, as a government entity, we don't have to worry about profit, and we're able to use that money as an investment into the system. And I think that's important to make sure that we have the level of service that our residents demand. So at the end of the day, I support this motion because I think it's good. I think it's good policy. I think it's good governance. And I am very, I just want to say it one last time, maybe not last time, but one last time tonight, that maintaining those employees in our community and in the service is really important to me. And I want to make sure that we do whatever we can to make sure that happens. Is there further discussion? One more, Phillips. Go for it.
I just want to say thank you, Mayor, for speaking on that topic specifically. One of my first motions was us as a council a couple years ago declaring healthcare a fundamental right, and I think that this is towards that end. I think that it's important to use that money as efficiently as possible to provide care directly to our community. So thank you for speaking on that specifically.
Thank you, Councilor. Further discussion? Will the recorder please call the roll?
Councilor Nordijk.
Aye.
Counselor Varney?
Aye.
Counselor Stapleton?
Aye.
Counselor Nishioka?
Aye.
Counselor Phillips?
Aye.
Counselor Gwynn?
Aye.
Counselor Gonzalez?
Aye.
Counselor Hoy?
Aye.
Mayor Hoy?
Aye. Motion passes. All right. We are on to item 5C, and I don't know who is leading 5C. Chief, is that you? It's a fire department issue. Nobody else is stepping up, so tag, you're it.
So Mike Niblock, Fire Chief. Just very briefly, this item is a assistance to firefighters grant for 3 ambulances. And so we're before you tonight asking for approval to apply for this grant and accept this grant if awarded. And that would give us 3 more ambulances at very little cost, well, no cost to the general fund because the EMS fund will pay the matching amount. I believe it's about 10% match, so about $100,000. We're asking for just a little over $1 million for 3 ambulances. So that's the request, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And we'll look into the electric ones. I didn't even know they were making electric ambulances, but we'll do some research.
Thank you, Chief. Are there questions for the Chief? Counselor Stapleton, do you have a motion?
I do. A quick question, though. Do you know when we're going to hear about this? I know sometimes it's like we make a motion and then it's like months and months.
It just closed March 8th.
Okay.
So we put a placeholder in for it, and then we're here. We've got a 2-week delay, so we're here for approval tonight to accept it if we get selected. It's probably going to be 3-4 months before we even hear that we're selected. I will tell you that the second priority this year in apparatus was ambulances.
Okay.
So it was fire trucks and then ambulances, and so that's as high as I've seen them on the list in quite some time. So we thought, well, let's go ahead and throw our name in the hat, see if we can grab 3 new medic units and reduce some costs and get them in service.
Okay, thank you. Quick, not on like Councilor Stapleton timeline, but quick. Yeah. All right. I move that the City Council authorize the city manager to apply for and, if awarded, accept the assistance to firefighters grant for purchasing 3 ground ambulances to support the implementation of the new ambulance operator model.
Second.
Motion by Stapleton, second by Phillips. Counselor, to your motion.
Like a rowdy group over here tonight. Okay.
It's getting late. We're getting punchy.
It is. Everybody should know we get goofy as the night goes on. Again, this is just another really great, good governance. I love that staff are looking for opportunities for grants that can help assist us in meeting the needs of the community. This is just one more opportunity for us to do that, and I appreciate them bringing it forward.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Will the recorder please call the roll?
Counselor Varney?
Aye.
Counselor Stapleton?
Aye.
Counselor Nishioka?
Aye.
Counselor Phillips?
Aye.
Counselor Gwynn?
Aye.
Counselor Gonzalez?
Aye.
Counselor Hoy?
Aye.
Counselor Nordyke? Aye. Mayor Hoy?
Aye. Motion passes. All right, we're to 3.2A. Counselor Gwynn.
So I move that we table this resolutions for financial policies, the fund financial policies, because we will be, well, no, I just leave it at that, right?
I'll second.
So the motion, just to clarify, is to table item 3.2A. Counselor, to your motion. Oh, I think our city attorney wants to chat with us.
Just, Counselor Gwynn, do you have a date certain for that, a future council meeting?
Can we do it after budget?
You can just say maybe a date as determined by staff.
So
Okay.
after the budget is adopted? Okay, that's
Yes.
Something.
Does that work?
Do you need an amended motion, or what do you need?
No, that's fine. So it'll be tabled to a date determined by staff.
Okay.
After the budget.
After, okay.
Does that work for you, Counselor?
Pardon?
Does that work for you?
Yes.
Okay.
So now,
Yes,
speak
now
to
to
my
your
motion.
motion.
Thank you. So it's my understanding that we will be adopting additional fund policies, so it just seems to me we should do it all at the same time and after the budget.
Okay. All right. Further discussion? Counselor Nordyke.
Sure, I'll just have I'm interested in your motion. I just want to know, is there a reason why these policies are being considered now? Is there a time sensitivity that prompted bringing this now instead of having all the policies come at the same time?
My understanding is it's not a time sensitivity. It's just the work of the budget or the finance committee had gotten, and they were just bringing it to us as they were finishing their work. And they had no issue. Staff had no issue with us delaying and bringing them in one big bundle.
Okay, I'm fine with it then. Thank you.
Yep. Further discussion? Will the recorder please call the roll?
And Mayor, did I get was there a second?
There was. It
okay.
was Stapleton.
All right,
Sorry if I
thank you
didn't
very
say that
much.
out loud.
Councillor Stapleton.
Aye.
Councillor Nishioka.
Aye.
Councillor Phillips.
Aye.
Councillor Gwynn.
Aye.
Councillor Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councillor Hoy.
Aye.
Councillor Nordike.
Aye.
Councillor Varney.
Aye.
Mayor Hoy.
Aye, motion passes. All right, we're on to information reports. We'll go through those one by one. Is there anything on item 6A? Councillor Gwynn.
I am so excited about this project. As we all know, we have a housing crisis in Salem and actually throughout the nation, but this project will bring over 1,200 single-family units plus multifamily. So I'm just super excited to see it coming to Ward 3.
Thank you. As I understand it, based on that address, this is the redevelopment of the old Mill Creek Correctional Facility property. So the kind of that hill area on Turner Road that's been sitting vacant since that prison was closed is now going to be redeveloped into single-family homes. So it's very exciting. Yeah, I agree. Councillor Phillips.
Yeah, as the counselor whose ward that this is in, I had no concerns. I had the opportunity to talk to staff and get my questions answered. I believe that this was passed through the Planning Commission unanimously, so it seems like it's good policy.
Thank you, Councillor. Is there anything else on that one? All right, item 6B. Okay, that concludes information reports. We have no first readings, so we're on to second readings.
Ordinance Bill number 324, an ordinance relating to the conversion of the private Sleepy Hollow Phase 1 water system. Councillor Nishioka.
Aye.
Councillor Phillips.
Heck yes.
Councillor Gwynn.
Aye.
Councillor Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councillor Hoy.
Aye.
Councillor Nordike.
Aye.
Councillor Varney.
Aye.
Councillor Stapleton.
Aye.
Mayor Hoy.
Aye. Motion passes. All right, Council, we are now on to item 8, which is public comment for items other than agenda items. By my just quick math, I think we have about an hour and 40 minutes worth of comment. So just taking your temperature now. Do you want to take a break before we start? You just want to get right into it? What do you want to do? Ready to go?
I'm ready to go.
Everybody's ready to go. So let me just go over the guidelines again. When I call your name, you're going to step up to either side. You're going to hit the button, make sure that green light is on. You're going to introduce yourself with your name and either your address or your ward. You'll have 3 minutes to speak to us. As a reminder, the yellow light will come on when you have 1 minute left. The red light comes on when your time is up. Please stop at that point so I don't have to interrupt you. And it's really going to be disruptive if we do a lot of clapping and things like that. We're trying to get everybody to have their time, so if we could just be respectful of that and let everybody have their say tonight, that would be great. So let's get started. First up is, well, and we're going to go in person and then we'll go online. So first up is Joel Estrin. After that, it'll be Kyle, is it Durkee? Yeah. So if you want to stage yourself up there, that would be great, and you'll be ready to go. We'll try to be as efficient as possible.
And Mr. Mayor, I hate to interrupt, but I have some lower back pain, so I may stand up and walk around a little bit, but please don't, anyone who's testifying, take that to mean I'm not listening, but my back's getting a little bit sore from sitting in this chair all day. Sorry for the interruption.
No worries. Thank you, Counselor. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to make this really brief. My mom always warned me about preaching to the choir, but it seems like we're all on the same page. No pun intended. That's a library pun. I have to work Wednesday morning at 10 o'clock, so I'm going to speed this up by just quoting Joni Mitchell. You don't know what you got till it's gone. Thank you.
Thank you. Any Joni Mitchell reference is good with me, so thank you. All right, Kyle, you are up next, and after that we will have Sadie, and I'm sorry, is it Vanille? Sadie, I hope you know what your last name is. I apologize for that.
My name is Kyle Durkee. I'm a resident of Ward 1. I look on a sign over here and it says community focused. How can we have a community if every option that we have involves library cuts? Cuts from within a city budget should always come from the top. We have a police budget that already accounts for 60% of our city budget. How can we justify that when we just spent, what is it, $6 million to rehab an airport that none of us had any input in, nor any chance to vote on? A library is more than just books. It's a community resource. It's a community center. It's a place where we go when it gets cold, a place where we go to be with our community. It's a place where we go to hold our meetings. It's a place where our kids go in the summertime to engage in reading programs. How can you, with a straight face, look at us and tell us that there's no money when those conditions are within our community? There's, again, money can be found if we remove the bloat. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Sadie Vanille. I apologize on your last name. And after that, it'll be Keegan Gormley. Hit that button. There you go.
Sorry.
Perfect.
Yes, Sadie Verville, Ward 6. And I am commenting in regards to concerns around the budget meeting from last Thursday, 3/21. I know that this is not on the agenda for tonight, and it's not going to be on the agenda potentially for a month, it sounded like, but I do believe that this is an extremely important conversation to start having right now. A month is not long at all, not with something this serious being considered. As long as the option to close the library is on the table, I will be advocating against it. I do support keeping our library open. I grew up in this library, in this community. I was born in the Salem Hospital. And my dad brought my sister and I to the library every week as kids for the computers, for the discovery room, and of course for the books. I continued participating in library programs through my teen years, and I still use it today as an adult. It was a refuge for me and a safe space. I would not be where I am today without this library, and I know many others in this community feel the same way. The education and literacy services offered there, especially for children, are essential. I cannot fathom a city without options for children's literacy that are free, especially with the rising costs of preschool and the budget cuts being made to the Salem-Keizer School District. The people who will be most impacted by this proposed closure and these proposed cuts in all of these options, like the people who will be most impacted will be low-income families and other marginalized communities. I ask again that you please do not close or severely cut the library. I would ask that you remove these options for consideration over the next couple months entirely. I know that's a difficult ask. One suggestion I've heard is making an equal percentage of cuts from all departments in the city library rather than placing the large burden of the shortfall on one of our most essential and valued services in the community. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Keegan Gormley.
Hello, I have to bend down a little bit, too tall. City Council and Mayor Hoy, my name is Keegan Gormley. I'm a resident of Salem in Ward 2. Speaking up for the library is like speaking up for clean water, the fire department, and keeping a school district. According to the National Directory of Public Libraries, if Salem were to lose its library, it would become the first and only capital city in the United States without a public flagship library that is publicly accessible. Students would lose access to learning resources and spaces. Children would lose an invaluable source of primary language development and love of learning, as we've heard. The elderly would lose a source of community and connection, we all would, and the downtrodden would lose access to internet, email, electronic, and in-print resources, essential for communicating with community resources, as well as gaining housing or employment. We saw during the pandemic how the library served parents, providing a space for them to study, those who are students or not, while academic buildings were shut down, while their children would play and just hang out in the safe space. And for working professionals, the library allows us to put books on hold and access materials even when our work hours prevent us from doing so. Our library serves all Salem residents, and moreover is one of the only destinations left where we can access vital information and services without the expectation of spending money. Without a library, the city's budget woes would still not be fixed, and no other essential service would be safe from being stripped away, logically. Again, we are talking about an institution literally as old as recorded time in human society. Losing the library would remove, as the Pew Center's Lee Rainey writes, quote, our collective early warning systems for broad cultural phenomena. The library has always brought people together, and without it, our already fractured political and social divisions would be further inflamed. Only now the breadcrumbs would lead back to this body. I strongly urge council members to unanimously oppose this measure, and I'm appalled this action is even being considered. It would be a stain on this government if passed, as our beloved library continues to carry our community and nurture the culture within. Forgive me if I don't believe the library won't close until it's formally taken off the table. The library and its staff have done their jobs. Formally discard this measure, and please do yours.
Thank you. Inam Al-Bustami. Hit that button for me and turn the green light on first, please. There you go. Perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Anam Al-Bustami, and I am from Zone 1. Today, I am here to demand a permanent ceasefire in Palestine. We have seen horrific scenes over the last nearly 6 months. We have seen a thoroughly documented genocide happen live in front of our eyes. We have seen Gazans bombed endlessly, aggressively, and inhumanely. We have seen entire residential blocks, hospitals, mosques, churches, and schools being flattened. We have seen how bakeries, ambulances, water towers, medical personnel, journalists, and proclaimed safe zones have been targeted. We have seen the stripping, blindfolding, assaulting, and torturing of Palestinians in Gaza. We have seen tortured and injured Palestinians run over by tanks. On top of not letting sufficient aid being let into the Gaza Strip, the IOF have committed multiple massacres at the aid sites. Palestinians are getting killed over flour bags they are rushing to secure for their families. Palestinians are being starved on purpose. Babies are dying and have died from starvation. Hundreds of babies have been and continue to be killed the day they were born, making them 0 years old. Every single possible resource has been stripped away. This is with the complete aid and support of the U.S. The U.S. is an accomplice in killing over 31,000 and injuring over 81,000. The latest UN resolution is not enough. It fundamentally falls short on the people's demand. We demand a ceasefire and permanent ceasefire, unrestricted entry of humanitarian aid, the denouncing of U.S. complicity in Israel's military campaign, a call to end all aid, including military aid to Israel, and the call to end Israeli apartheid and acts of genocide against the Palestinian people. This is a genocide. It is clear, and it is our moral duty to do everything we can to stop this genocide. It is the responsibility of this government to take a stand against the brutal and inhumane killings of Palestinians and rectify the damage it has caused so far. Free Palestine. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah Van Woy.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Van Woy, and I live in Ward 2.
I've been following the city budget for quite a while, and there are several topics that come up regularly that I'm struggling to understand, and I'd like to ask a few questions about them this evening. I have no agenda tonight other than I want to better understand these issues before I make up my mind one way or the other. Firstly, several of you are running against measures 5 and 50. It's my understanding that 5 and 50 were created to keep Oregon property tax rates low. I would assume that makes housing more affordable in Salem rather than less. What is the thought process behind the proponents of affordable housing also running against these two measures? Secondly, it's my understanding that low property tax rates encourage the growth of business and urban development. One of the arguments against last year's payroll tax was the possibility that the city might not gain the amount of revenue they were hoping for because many people might respond by simply working outside the city limits. How do we know that something similar would not occur with the removal of 5 and 50, and that a higher tax rate would actually result in a lower tax revenue because people would build or sell fewer properties in Salem? Next, regarding affordable housing, I've heard that rent control can worsen a housing crisis because it discourages new housing development and it shifts urban growth to buildings that are not subject to these price controls. It also forces landlords to offer their products below the market price, many of whom are just barely making it by themselves, and it discourages the upkeep that would otherwise be necessary for a unit to remain competitive in the free market. So my question is, despite the fact that most of Salem's affordable housing efforts are state funded, are we certain that these efforts have not in any way worsened the housing crisis? My last question is regarding the impending budget cuts and loss of vital services in the community. I've increasingly asked myself whether there are private sector entities that may naturally step in to fill the void if some of these services went away. Will churches organize more 50+ events? Will community centers offer more free internet cafes, etc.? But specifically regarding parks operations and maintenance, to what extent does something like a neighborhood association or a private agency have the freedom to undertake park maintenance like mowing the grass and cleaning the bathrooms if the city cannot fund that service? I don't expect you guys to answer those questions right now, but those are all questions that I've really struggled to answer myself. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Jane Miramontes.
Good evening, Mayor Hoy and members of the council. My name is Jane Miramontes. I am a student at Willamette University College of Law, and I live in Ward 1. I am here today to comment on the budget options that city leadership proposed on Thursday. These options would include either cutting the Salem Public Library to a skeleton staff and limited hours, or closing the library completely. Its budget would be mostly diverted to the police department. I understand that we are not voting on these options today, but the fact that you have even considered them is unacceptable. Councilors, you seem to believe that more police are the only thing necessary to make a city safe. This is not true. Police officers are a reactionary force. They respond and punish when a crime has happened. They do not prevent it. If we wish to prevent crime in this city, we need to invest in building a strong community and alleviating poverty. The library does just that. The library supports education for children of all ages. They plan events for all ages in English, Spanish, and Russian. They connect people to vital social services. They are a safe space for those who are experiencing homelessness to go during the day. They provide access to books, media, arts, and culture to anyone regardless of their ability to pay. If you go to the library on any given day, you'll see families sharing stories, kids playing in the discovery room. You'll see teens hanging out after school and getting help with homework. You'll see adults using the free Wi-Fi and computers to do work or look for jobs. And you'll notice it's not silent like in the movies. People are talking, laughing, and building connections in a safe and welcoming environment. A public library is not just a building full of books. It is one of the few places that anyone can go to spend time and build connection without spending money. The police will be there for me and my neighbors when something goes wrong. They are there for our community on our worst days. But the library is there every day, creating connection and safety for everyone. Councilors, I urge you to reject these budget proposals. Find a solution that allows our city to be there for its citizens, not just on our worst days, but for our everyday. Thank you.
Thank you. Wendy Cornelison. Wendy Cornelison. Oh, there you are.
Hello, mayors and members of the council. My name is Wendy Cornelison. I'm a resident of Ward 4, and I'm also the state librarian of Oregon. Like many in this room, I am relieved that council is not considering closing the library. I am here to provide some additional perspective and information. I've also submitted written comments, so keeping this brief.
Thank you.
Salemites have already shown that they, like people throughout Oregon and across the nation, value their libraries. In November of 2017, 63% of residents voted in favor of upgrading the main library, work that was completed only 2 years ago. That investment helped rejuvenate the library. The state library hopes that council will recognize that continuing to invest in the Salem Public Library, not cutting it, will bring many-fold benefits to the city, to the residents as well. The state library is happy to discuss any of these issues further, including supporting Salem in efforts to possibly pursue a special library district to secure more stable funding for the Salem Library. Please do not hesitate to reach out to us if you would like more information about forming a library district or any other data that will help you as you make this important budget decision in the coming months. Thank you.
Thank you. And I can't pass this opportunity as the ambassador from our friends at the state government. Thank you for being here tonight, and we look forward to speaking with you about a payment in lieu of taxes so we can recover the $7.5 million in property taxes you don't pay every year.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, Hannah Bastrom.
Hello, Mayor Hoy and Salem Council members. My name is Hannah Bostrom. I live in Ward 8, and I am a librarian with the Salem Public Library. My colleagues and I are here today to paint a picture of the library services for you in response to recent comments of consideration for option 3 in the Budget Committee meeting. I want to begin to highlight the bond that was passed by 63, as Wendy already took all of my stuff, 63% of Salem voters in 2017 to renovate the library and make it seismically safe. This bond was not tied to police or fire to make it pass. Voters showed out for the library to support the library alone. It is in direct contrast to your constituents' wishes to close the library. Any choice that would lead to closure of the library would be a mishandling of taxpayers' money, and the bond would still need to be paid while the doors are closed. In the event of a closure, there would be an extreme lost opportunity cost. If we close and wait for another budget source for the library, we will be missing years of information and resources. It would take a massive amount of money and effort to prepare the library for reopening. Collection development, preparation, and maintenance are complex processes and cannot just be snapped back into existence. During a closure, we would be failing people of all ages, especially those most vulnerable in our community. This impact would extend past the borders of Salem and into the greater Mid-Willamette Valley because of our place in the Chemeketa Cooperative Regional Library Service. Salem plays a major role in CCRLS, and our removal would have a significant ripple effect. Now on to the details of the building. Since the beginning of the renovation, the library has taken many steps to reduce barriers to usage, focusing heavily on elements that impact those community members in greatest need. We've made parking virtually free to everyone with generous visiting times. We've gone fine-free, removing standard circulation fines, which allows everybody to continue to utilize library services no matter what situation they are in. And due to this policy change, I myself have helped many people sign up for cards over the last few years who would have avoided coming back to use the library due to these outdated fines. We've allowed for ease of access to computer usage with daily guest passes. With free public Wi-Fi, we are helping close the technology gap of Salem residents who don't have access to broadband internet at home. And staff are also there to help assist with development of digital literacy for our visitors. We offer 10 free prints per day, helping people access printing services that they would not otherwise have a chance to use. We have a no card, no problem collection, which offers reading materials for any visitor. This collection is for keeps or for returning, helping people have access to materials no matter if they have a card or not. We have free public study rooms, which were added to the building and are extremely sought after. Our meeting rooms are also booked by a broad range of individuals and groups in the community on a daily basis. Our beautiful library is well loved and well used by countless people in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah.
Mayor Chris.
Thank you to you and all of the Salem Public Library employees who are here tonight. I appreciate your service. Thank you for being here.
Mayor Chris Hoy, I have a quick question.
Yep. Go ahead.
So thank you for the work that you do in what I think is an essential service, our local library. My question to you is, I have heard community members not understand why don't we have fines. I'm not in support of fines, but I just didn't, I think you mentioned it, so could you briefly speak to were we making any money off fines, and what's the benefit of not having fines?
So, I mean, I don't have stats on me for this question, but the amount of money that you bring back from the fines that you make money on is not worth the time for the administrative work that we do to gather all of those. It's a super penalizing system, and again, it's a massive barrier for people coming into the library. The whole point is that we want people to utilize our services. So we, again, are like a service thing. We can't think of it as a revenue thing, but we were still spending so much more time and effort getting that money back and just harassing people. So it's much more worth it being fine-free overall. And I just want to say, if you lose or damage a book, you have to pay for that. Yeah.
Thank you. That's very helpful and helps me as a counselor interface with the community who mentions that. So thank you for that additional testimony.
Thank you, Counselor. Christy Kemper Hodge. And then next up we have Alyssa Kokinis.
Good evening. My name is Christy Kemper Hodge. I live in Ward 6. I am here tonight to speak out about the potential closure of the public library based on recent proposals presented at the Budget Committee last week. I am a librarian at Salem Public Library and a concerned citizen. Salem Public Library provides free access and resources to everyone. There is no other service like us in the city. No purchase or membership is required for entering and spending time at the library during all or any of its open hours. The library is an often unseen part of the continuum of support for our most at-risk community members, such as the unhoused. The library provides a safe place for all community members to pursue their own education, development, interests, and recreation. Youth and adults alike use library spaces for homework, study, tutoring, meetings, and making social connections. Programs for elementary-age kids include Tinkertech, Read to a Pet, Lego Party, and Creative Kids. An active teen advisory board, several members of which are here tonight, thank you, assists with programming ideas and activities for young adults. Families visit the library for early literacy events, as well as for a free, safe, indoor space where children are welcome to explore, learn, and play, and be a little loud. Early literacy is important to establish in the first 5 years of a child's life. We provide a number of story times in English, Spanish, Russian, and with ASL interpretation for children infant through 6 years of age that promote the early literacy skills of reading, talking, writing, playing, and singing, which prepare children to enter school. Other programs that encourage these skills are Discovery Kids and Early Readers Book Club. Parents with homeschooled children conduct their studies at the library and utilize the library's resources of books, databases, and internet access to support their children's education and schooling. Older adults and people on fixed income find events, social outlets, and free means to pursue their own learning and entertainment via the library. The library provides a welcoming, inclusive space for disabled community members of all ages. Many families, direct support professionals or DSPs, and organizations that provide services for disabled people use the library as a free place where they can read, play, learn, work on skill building, connect socially, and volunteer as a way to meet a wide variety of needs. Begun by our Teen Advisory Board, the library provides ongoing support to individuals in need with our Take What You Need program. Community members donate essential personal care items, which library staff then makes available daily in designated public restrooms at the library, along with brochures and flyers about resources and organizations where people can access free food, mental health support, housing, and more. As a demonstration of one way the library supports our community, let me share. When working with the public at the library, I routinely assist people with accessing our computers and copy machines to apply for jobs and create and print resumes. The library offers these services for free, whether someone has a card or not. By supporting job seekers, we are supporting community members to turn into productive citizens who benefit us all. Thank you.
Thank you, Christy. Alyssa? And then next up, we have BJ Toe. Is it Toey? Sorry.
Good evening, Mayor Hoy and, am I on? Yes, I am, okay. Good evening, Mayor Hoy and City Council. My name is Alyssa Kokinas, and I live in Ward 2.
If I could interrupt you for 1 second, I apologize. Thank you. We just needed to reset our lights. I didn't want you to get distracted by the red light. I am so sorry for interrupting you. We'll start your clock over again.
Okay, cool. Can I just talk whenever?
Yeah, just go. Just go. Yeah.
All right. Good evening, Mayor Hoy and City Council. My name is Alyssa Kokinas, and I live in Ward 2. I am also a senior library assistant in circulation services at the library. As you consider potential further cuts to library services and staff, including complete closure, please consider the following. Since July 2023 until March 2024, the library has had 972,235 total circulation transactions, putting us on track to surpass 1 million circulation transactions come summer 2024. Our circulating materials include your typical print books that cover a wide range of subject matters and genres to represent community needs. Whether for research, the latest book talk trend, or to read the newspaper, we literally have you covered. We even have a cool service called Book Match, where you can tell us a genre or title you enjoyed in the past, and our team of librarians and library staff will help generate a list of new books to try. Our large checkout amounts for patrons can and do include some amazing items like the Library of Things. I once, as a patron, checked out the 2-person kayak, and then my partner and I floated down the Willamette River. It was amazing. There are also a wide range of book group kits to help you start or supplement the book club in your life, complete with 10 copies of each book and discussion questions. Items that are normally cost prohibitive are available to you to check out at the library for free. There are also e-resources that allow access to ebooks and digital audiobooks. The Libby and Cloud Library apps for applicable patrons give additional digital checkouts on top of print checkouts. We also have other apps like Canopy, we call it the library's Netflix, online access to newspapers, access to consumer reports, a language learning app, and more. All for free if you have a library card. And I do wonder, do all city councilors have a library card right now? Our Spanish language collections are available for all demographics, adults, teens, and children. We have trained bilingual staff to assist our Spanish-speaking patrons, which includes 2 bilingual librarians, and many of those staff are recent hires from 2022. They may be disproportionately impacted by further cuts to the library, which would be a disservice to our Spanish-speaking community here in Salem. Whether you need reference, research, or reader's advisory services, we staff are working at the service desks, in the stacks, on the phone, and through email to get you the information and resources you're looking for. We love and value our volunteers and the service they put in, but because this is a regular talking point, staffing the library with volunteers, especially one of our size, is not a feasible nor sustainable option. Much of the library work requires in-depth training, expertise, and education. I love helping our patrons get the help and the information they need, whether you're the man with the frog library card tattoo, the teen looking for manga, or the children getting their first library card. Our community can and should continue raising their voices about their public library. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Alyssa, and thank you for mentioning about the kayak. I knew about the Library of Things and all the great, but I've never heard about the kayak, so I learned something. Thank you for that. All right, BJ, you're up. If you could hit that button for me and turn the green light on first. There you go.
All right. Good evening, Mayor Hoy and City Councilors. My name is BJ Toey, and I beg your indulgence and forgiveness tonight because I live in Kaiser. However, I spent 33 years of my career as a manager at Salem Public Library, the last 6 of which I was the city librarian. As a result, I have a deep understanding of the funding issues facing you. These are difficult decisions with no easy or good solution. We all understand the importance of public safety and also the magnitude of issues encountered when looking for solutions to the problems facing our unhoused neighbors. However, it's also important to understand the significant role that Salem Public Library plays every day that it's open for many who are unhoused. More than any other public building in the city of Salem, Salem Public Library provides solutions for people without homes or shelter. The U.S. ranks 125th out of 194 countries in the world for literacy. 54% of the U.S. citizens 16 through 74 read below a 6th grade reading level. The library works with so many people who are facing housing challenges, those using public computers to keep in touch with loved ones, people who need a safe, warm place in the winter or a cool place in the summer that has a public restroom, those trying to find work or apply for jobs online, high school non-completers looking for their alternatives, corrections and reentry populations, recent immigrants who want to learn or improve their English language skills, unhoused teens looking for a safe place to read, to be entertained, to use Wi-Fi, to relax, and to interact with other teens. Parents concerned about their children who need a safe place to use the internet, to come to story time for early language and literacy skills, to enrich their children's lives by seeing a live performance, and to engage in imaginative, interactive, hands-on learning in the discovery room. Allow me to finish with a story about Paul. He was homeless. He regularly came to use the computers. A volunteer often took the time to say hello to him and eventually asked him where he slept. He said he used to sleep in his car, but it had recently been towed out of a parking lot. He couldn't afford to get it out of the tow yard. He couldn't afford a new battery. That volunteer talked to other people in the library who raised money to get his car out, to buy him a new battery, and one of them had a connection with a friend with a company who was hiring, and Paul got a job. Salem Public Library makes a real difference in the lives of your residents. Your constituents love this library.
Thank you,
Drastic
BJ.
cuts would be a critical mistake.
Thank you. Arlene Weibel. Arlene Weibel, and then after that we have Logan Decker. There you go.
There. Hi. My name is Arlene Weibel, and I'm a resident of Ward 7 here in Salem. I'm here to express my deep concern about the budget reduction scenarios presented to the Salem Budget Committee on March 21st by city management. All scenarios present options to decimate library services, either by further staff reductions or complete closure. The information shared with the Budget Committee by city management does not adequately communicate the impact these reductions will have on the community. I would ask all members of City Council to demand more rigorous analysis and data as you discuss fiscal year 2025 budget proposals in the Budget Committee and City Council meetings in the coming months. All of the budget scenarios presented, in all of those scenarios, undervaluing library services is shocking. How can a community tackle the difficult issues of affordable housing, gang violence, and public safety if there's not attention given to the services that support low-income families in our community? Please ask questions about how library services impact issues like safety and livability in our community. Libraries are not a luxury to low-income members of our community. They are a lifeline to access the services they need to navigate life in our increasingly digital world. Salem will lose more than just a place to check out books if city library services are further cut or eliminated. I'm going to skip a little bit because you've heard a lot about what is going on in the library, and I hope you have maybe a better understanding than you did at the beginning of the session tonight, the things that are going on there. All I would say is that please continue to ask city management for rigorous studies that give you a full picture of the impact of their budget scenarios on residents of Salem. Ask them to spend some real time with library staff to get a better understanding of how the services they provide are connected to the city's work. And please ask for information that will help you to gain a fuller picture of the value of public libraries. It is my firm belief that if you do so, you will understand that curtailing library services as proposed will only perpetuate the problems you are working so hard to address in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Logan Decker. Logan, are you still here? Yeah, come on up. And then we have Oliver Hart after that. There you go.
Oh.
Perfect.
Hello. I am with Ward 1. My name is Logan. And I just think the library is just a really important part of our community. Just because it's more than just, like other people have been saying, a place to check out books. It's part of our big part of our community. There's just so many services, and I think we should stop cutting anything from them, not to mention just completely get rid of it. But yeah, thank you for your time.
Logan, what's your favorite part of the library? What's your favorite thing you do there?
It'd probably have to be the teen section and also the tab, because I just love helping out our community.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your testimony. Oliver Hart. Oliver Hart. There's Oliver.
Is it on already?
It is. You're ready to go.
Hi, my name is Oliver Hart. Some of you may remember me from prior meetings. I live in Ward 2, and I'm here to speak on behalf of the Salem Public Library. Closing the Salem Public Library is a betrayal of Salem's youth. The youth of Salem, from the 3-year-olds who attend story times to the 17-year-olds who come to the library to study, are facing massive uncertainty. Between overcrowded classrooms, overwhelmed teachers, and the possibility of a strike, our education is up in the air. It is in times like these that we need the library. We need the books, the internet access, the study groups, and the support. I would love to say that by the time these budget cuts would go into effect, these issues with our school system would be resolved, but it would take a miracle for that to happen. In the meantime, the Salem Public Library is more important than ever. Salem only has one library, and keeping that library's collection readily available to the public is a crucial part of encouraging and maintaining literacy. Without the library, the intellectual health of Salem citizens who depend on it for books will suffer immensely. By spreading out these budget cuts across Salem services, as outlined in options 1 and 2, you have an opportunity to keep a vital resource alive. If you choose option 3 or 4 and decide that the Salem Public Library is unimportant enough to be completely shut down, if you choose to deprive your city of its only library, you will be affecting youth across Salem. Already, news of the impending budget cuts is spreading across social media platforms. The young adults of Salem know what is happening, we know what is at stake, and we will continue fighting for the resources we need. Councillor Hoy has expressed some valid concerns that citizens were not at the budget meeting to speak up about this issue, and I would like to assure the council that now that this information is spreading and is easily accessible to the average Salem citizen, rest assured many will be sharing their support of the library. Thank you.
Thank you, Oliver. D. Barron. D. Barron. And then we have Aaron Snyder after that. Nope, you don't have it on yet. There you go.
Okay, sorry.
That's all right.
Hi, my name is Dee. I live in Ward 8, and I'm here to speak on behalf of Salem Public Library. I understand that the city budget is tight, but I ask you all to consider the impact the library has on teens and individuals. The library is a resource for many teens who need a break from their home life or space to be free. There are very few spaces left for teens to relax freely and safely around Salem. I've been coming to the library since I was little. My dad passed away when I was 5, and for the longest time, I didn't have an outlet for all of those emotions that I felt. When I started coming to the library, it became my outlet. I could sit and go to different universes while reading different books, different genres. I was able to escape from my hard and painful reality for however long I needed. But the library still does that for me. I have spent years coming for the library when my emotions were too heavy for me to deal with, and I'm able to lose and find myself in books when needed. When the library is closed on Sundays and the hours are cut, we teens can't spend our days studying and reading. This building and these resources allow us all a place to feel safe. The teen events that TAB puts on give teens a chance to make friends and meet new people. For most teens, our families don't have an endless amount of money to buy books. Having a library gives us all the chances to read books and try out plenty of different genres that we may or may not like, and we're able to return them and try out more. That's what kids and teens need, and that is what a library is supposed to be.
Students are dealing with a possible strike in the school district this year, and students need an outlet and a space to study more than ever. We cannot shut down the library. Shutting down the library would be damaging an entire generation. So I ask again that you all fully consider the impact that will have on the children and teens growing up now. Please don't take away our safe space. Even as a member of the Teen Advisory Board, I had no idea that the city was considering such severe options until after the budget meeting had happened. I appreciate the council's willingness to hear our voices at this meeting and hope that in the future, if our perspectives are wanted or needed at specific meetings, that information will be more widespread. Thank you.
Aaron Snyder. Aaron Snyder. Aaron? Is Aaron here? No. Okay. Jasenia Salinas. Hit that button for me and turn the green light on. There you go.
Hi, my name is, sorry, I'm out of breath.
It's okay, take a minute. We'll start the clock over.
Okay, cool.
Hold on, somehow your green light just went out. I think you maybe hit the button. There you go.
It's because I was holding it down, yeah, okay.
No worries.
So I just wanted to, first of all, introduce myself and say thank you for listening to our comments today. I wanted to go ahead and give you some stats about the Israeli genocide in the Gaza Strip as of March 12th. March 14th. So 40,000, these numbers include the people that are presumed dead under the rubble from the carpet bombing. So that's 40,042 people killed, 14,861 children, 9,273 women, and 36,330 civilians. Injured, 74,400. Journalists killed, 134. Partially destroyed homes, 256,100. Completely destroyed homes, 112,000. Displaced, 2.2 million. Destroyed or damaged press headquarters, 175. Damaged schools, 438. Destroyed industrial facilities, 2,131. Healthcare facilities, 285. That would include 28 hospitals, 65 clinics, 192 ambulances. People that have been forcibly disappeared, kidnapped, or detained would be 3,320. That would be 197 civil defense workers have been killed, 771 healthcare professionals, 3 damaged churches, 634 damaged mosques, and 200 damaged heritage sites. You may be wondering, what does this matter to the Salem City Council? We have no power in these things that the bigger government does. But you're wrong. You have the power to pass a resolution that represents the views of your constituents, which is that this genocide needs to stop. You have to ask yourself, what would I be doing back in World War II during the Holocaust? Well, right now is what you're doing. So we really urge you to listen to us when we bring you our petition. It's calling on Salem City Council to call for a permanent ceasefire and demand justice in Palestine. We'll be bringing that to you to the next City Council meeting. Look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go online to Whitney Hines. Whitney, are you with us? Staff, is Whitney still online?
I don't think so.
Okay, how about Laura Griffin? Lauren Griffin, are you there? No. How about Nora Davis? No. How about Amani Culpepper? All right, that is our list. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.